broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Carlson, Vieira, Maniscalco. Here. Hurtak.
Here.
Goods. Here. Miranda.
Here.
Citro.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
Thank you. Let the record reflect that Councilman Carlson will be a couple seconds late. I say seconds because I know he will be here soon. And that Councilman Vieira is appearing virtually.
And
Mr. Shelby.
And Mr. Chairman, consistent with council's rules, if we could just have a motion to accept the fact that Councilman Vieira is appearing virtually, and a reminder.
Second.
A reminder then that a roll call vote.
Yes.
Thank you.
We have a motion made by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Mr. Shelby.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Very briefly, quasi-judicial matters, as per council's custom, and is going to become its standing rule, is going to allow for, and does allow for, in-person participation and also by virtual participation, the instructions of which are available on the city's website at tampa.gov/city-council, and also in the notice of hearing and on the agenda, and I would like council to please make a motion to waive the rules to allow it.
We have a motion made by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any against? Thank you very, very much.
One last thing, and we might as well do this at the outset, sir, with regard to ex parte communications for the quasi-judicial hearings. If there are any quasi-judicial, if there's any ex parte communications before the hearing takes place, if you can please announce with whom it took place and the sum and substance of that communication. With regard to the written communications, which have been available for public inspection, please at this time a motion to receive and file.
Second. The motion made by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor? Aye. Is there any objection?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please indulge me in this. Ms. Wells.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of City Council, and thank you for just a brief introduction. Dana Crosby Collier joined the city's legal department last month. We've not had an opportunity to introduce her to you. Dana is going to be working in the land use and real estate practice group. You will see her coming before council as we're processing amendments to Chapter 27. During her interview, she indicated that she enjoyed legislative matters, and we said we can work with you on that. She'll be very busy. But just a little bit about Dana. She graduated from the Florida State University College of Law, go Knowles. She comes to us from the law firm of Straley, Robin, and Veriker. Before that, she was with Sheffield, Lohman, and Wilson. But she has extensive public sector experience, which is something that was very important to us and very attractive to the city. Dana was an assistant county attorney with Orange County between 2006 and 2015, an assistant city attorney with the city of Gainesville between 2003 and 2006, and an assistant county attorney with Polk County from 1999 to 2003, and she has other experience as well. But with all of those different public sector employers and the private sector experience, just has a tremendous amount of land use experience that's going to be a great benefit to the city. So here's Dana.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a Tampa native. I was born here. I went to Robinson as well, graduated Robinson High School, and went to University of Tampa, and then moved away for a while, and then came back to Tampa. Been trying to get back to Tampa ever since I left. So I'm delighted to be here. I couldn't be happier. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
On behalf of Tampa City Council, welcome to the family.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Ms. Dock, shall we go over the agenda?
Yes, thank you so much, Council. LaShawn Dock, Development Coordination. And there are a few items I'd like to clear on this evening's agenda. So the first item is item number 2. This is a request. This is REZ 2244. The applicant is requesting a continuance on this item to April 13th, 2023.
I apologize. Can I have a motion to open all hearings?
Roll.
Second. Thank you very much. We have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor? Aye. Is there any objection? Is the petitioner here?
I believe so.
Good evening, my name
This
is
is
David
number
Wright. Address is P.O. Box 273417, Tampa, Florida 33688. We're requesting a continuance in order to allow us to work with staff a little bit further on this application, and we'd also request to waive the 180-day rule, please.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak to this continuance only? Do we have anyone online? No.
Move to continue the item RAZ 22-44 to April 13th, 2023.
Yeah, and this is your first continuance, correct?
Yes.
Thank you very much. We have a motion made by Councilman Goods, by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods.
Excuse me, counsel, I'm sorry, this is the second.
Second.
There was another continuance granted, yes.
I'm sorry, Ms. Doc, what did you say?
This is the second continuance,
It is the second continuance.
yes.
Does that change your motion, Councilman Maniscalco?
It does not.
Second does not change?
The third one that gets
That, just wanted to make sure. We have a motion made by Councilman Goods, Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor? Aye. Is there any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Again, LaShawn Dock, Development Coordination. The next item on the agenda to clear is item number 5. If this item could be removed from the agenda, this application has been withdrawn by the applicant.
Move to withdraw
Second.
item number 5 RAZ-22-43.
Thank you. We have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor? Aye. Is there any opposed?
And the last item, council to clear, is item number 7. This case is REZ 2283. This case was it is a misnotice, and this is the second time that this has been a misnotice for this particular application. So the applicant is being represented by Steve Michelini. He is here, and he'd like to request a date.
Good evening, council. We apologize for the second misnotice. We transposed some numbers on the folio numbers when we requested the notice documents from the property appraiser's office, and that ended up providing us with inaccurate information for the notice. We have since corrected that and will respectfully request a new hearing date.
What date?
We have available April 13th.
If I can, Mr. Michelini, if I can, has this been misnoticed prior to this?
This is the second misnotice. This would be the third time that the hearing has been set. We sent out the notices, but they went to the wrong addresses. And that's our request of extenuating circumstances so the council can consider this.
Councilman Goods.
Mr. McLean, you said it went out to the wrong address?
When we put in the wrong folio numbers requesting the notice list, the addresses that came back to us were not they were not the correct ones that we should be notifying. So it's technically a misnotice because we didn't discover it until after the deadline when notices should have gone out. It's been corrected now, sir.
Is there anyone in council that wishes to speak to this?
Good evening, council. My name is Stephanie Pointer. I'm the president of Gandy Civic Association, which received the first misnotice that was mailed 2 days after it was supposed to be mailed. I also, as the board member for Southtown Park, received a misnotice for the last misnotice, which was mailed 2 days late. I have also had conversations with neighbors who received the first misnotice, which was mailed 2 days late. So if they were sent to the wrong people the first time, they got nowhere this time. So I'm really, really befuddled at how you do 2 misnotices in a row when there's a waiver requested in there on something that was turned down in the last workshop.
Council, I'm going to ask you to ignore that statement that was made outside the public hearing. It's not relevant at this point to be heard.
Anyone else wish to speak to this misnotice?
Hi, my name's Carol Ann Bennett. We just have a real problem with the schedule of city council. I know you all are always having to add extra nights. The scheduling is an issue. The constant misnoticing over and over again. The request for continuances. It's been misnoticed twice. That's enough. It should be follow the rules. It should be withdrawn. No continuance. Thank you.
Anyone else in chambers? Is there anyone online? What is the pleasure of council? Councilman Goods.
Mr. Shelby, repeat the rules, sir.
Well, your rule states that, or your custom right now, which is going to, it's been consistently council's position that if on more than 2 occasions, the matter is properly set before council, but the petitioner does one of the following, and one of them is fails to perfect public notices set forth in the applicable provision of Code of Ordinances, then council may deem a petition withdrawn and dismiss the petition. That's what your custom has been, more than 2.
What's the pleasure of council?
So this is 3 then?
No, this is 2.
This is 2.
2.
That's what we've heard.
There-
Is that, did I hear that correctly from Ms. Dox? This is the second misnotice.
I've been advised by staff that you can consider the extenuating circumstances. Some of the notices were accurate and correct. Some of the notices were not. But we have to have, as you know, the notices have to be 100% correct.
Mr. Shelby, am I correct in saying you can have 2, you can never have 3?
That's
without
what,
the 180 days kicking in, am I correct?
well, you can, if there are, council, with regard to misnotices, council has been consistent, to my recollection, that you've allowed 2 misnotices, and when it comes back, if there's a 3rd misnotice, council has, if my recollection is clear, deemed it to be withdrawn.
Ms. Wells.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, this is addressed in section 27-150 of the Land Development Code. So it's not in council's rules of procedure. And it says, where an applicant filing an application for a rezoning property fails to perfect his application by not filing the affidavit on time or otherwise fails to perfect the notice or site plan requirements set forth in this chapter, so that the petitioner may not be heard at the scheduled public hearing, and any of the foregoing acts or omissions occur for 2 consecutive public hearings scheduled for the subject petition, then no new or amended application involving the same property may be heard for a minimum period of 6 months from the date of the last public hearing specifically scheduled for that petition and/or property. So I think that's different than what Mr. Shelby indicated, where he was advising council that you may deem it withdrawn. That language is not actually in the code. This just addresses 2 consecutive misnoticed hearings and a 6-month waiting period that it would be considered withdrawn.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilman Goods.
I want to make sure I'm clear. We've had actually 2 misnotices, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So we're not going to thirds, and the rule says 2 misnotices, right, Ms. Welch?
It's actually in the Land Development Code, and it's not a rule. It's a Land Development Code provision. It's section 27-150, subsection D.
I see it. Yeah, and that is, what Ms. Wells is stating is correct. Which is, that's exactly what it says with regard to 150, 27-150, yes. For 2 consecutive public hearings. Then no, okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilman
Mr.
Goods.
Chairman, is there extenuating circumstances? Since I'm hearing we've had 2 hearings. Would any extenuating circumstance fall in this category this time?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, sir?
Would any extenuating circumstances fall with what Mr. Michelini is alleging at this time? You've had 2 hearings for misnotices. So now it's up to this council to see if he will get a 3rd. So I'm asking, is there any extenuating circumstances if we decide to do this or go forth with this matter?
I see nothing in the code that would allow that.
Let the record reflect that Councilman Carlson has joined us.
Ms. Wells, would you concur then that there is no basis in this code then for council's discretion on this under the way you have presented it to council?
Kate Wells, for the record, the one time I'm aware of where council waived this requirement, Attorney Clayton Bricklemeyer had testified that for the first scheduled hearing, he had not received the notice from city staff. So in that situation, council found extenuating circumstances and waived the requirements and allowed the hearing to get scheduled for a third time. That's the one time I'm aware of that council has waived the provisions of this section when it has been triggered.
People are waiting for number
Again,
one.
council, what is your pleasure?
The rules
The
are
rules,
rules.
the rule, I mean, the rules, rule, we've had 2 missed notices, so, I guess we,
Withdraw, it would then under 27-150, it would be deemed withdrawn.
motion withdraw item number 7.
We have a motion made by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, I was just gonna ask if I should vote on it, but, Mr. Marty, I'm familiar with the case because the legal department briefed me on it, but I did not hear the testimony, so should I vote on it or not? I apologize to everyone, I got stuck in traffic with a kid thing.
Ms. Doc, you approach the lectern. Do you want to say something?
No, I was just gonna finish
Okay.
once the vote was done, I'm sorry.
Do you feel comfortable that you have a sufficient amount of information to be able to present the vote? Have you heard the opportunity, the discussion about the section of the code?
Yeah, I understand the situation. I did not hear the
Okay.
applicant's testimony, but I just heard this side of it. If the applicant would like me to recuse myself, I can. But I apologize, I missed the testimony.
I think it's sufficient that you can vote on this.
We have a motion on the floor that's made by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, council. That completes all of the items. Or did you want to?
I just wanted to make sure that if the site plan is amended, then we can refile without the 6 months.
That is correct. Mr. Shelby?
Let me take a look at 150.
No? Ms. Kate Wells? No?
It's a new application. That's fine, thank you.
Okay. I stand corrected.
Thank you, Council LaShawn, Doc Development Coordination, and so that clears the agenda. That was the last item to clear, so we are ready to start our agenda. With the first item, I'm going to turn it over to Planning Commission staff.
Okay, I would like to do something at this time. We have a room full of people. We have people downstairs. Are you going to run downstairs right now?
And then you'll go ahead and just give me a second, and then we can just do that.
Yes, ma'am. Because we are going to have a lot of people speaking. I want to make sure everyone is sworn in. Even if you have given a waiver for your time, I would still like everyone who is going to be giving any type of testimony tonight or making any speaking on any of our agenda items to please rise, raise your right hand to be sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Please be seated, and please, may I ask that your cell phones be silenced? Thank you.
You want some popcorn? You got popcorn, D?
Good evening, Council. Jennifer Malone with your Planning Commission staff. Before I dive into the presentation, I would just like to address some questions that I'm sure this council has about this case and provide some options for City Council. So as I think there was a letter that was uploaded to SIRE kind of explaining the background of this case. As reflected in the letter, the applicant applied to the Planning Commission with the request of residential 83 on the subject site. Planning Commission staff reviewed residential 83. Planning Commission voted on residential 83 at their November hearing. The Planning Commission found that request inconsistent. Following that hearing, the applicant sent a letter to the Planning Commission, the Planning Commission requesting a reduction in density from the residential 83 to the residential 50 designation. In the instance of a reduction of the request after it is heard by the Planning Commission, it does not come back to the Planning Commission, nor do we file a new staff report because it is a reduction. Had the request been an increase, the process would be different. There is an adopted comprehensive plan amendment procedures manual that you all actually adopt by resolution for the cities of Tampa, Temple Terrace, and Plant City, and it goes to those jurisdictions as well. That is silent on this process. So it has always been the standard operating that when the request is reduced, we don't issue a new staff report. Neither did city staff, because as you know, we send this out for city staff review, so they have an opportunity to provide a report, and Stephen Benson is here if you have any questions about his report, but city staff does not review it again either.
Councilman Goode.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Councilman Goode.
So, Ms. Malone, what we're saying is that we're not asking for an 83 at this time, what I'm hearing, right?
That is correct. The applicant has asked for residential 50. I believe that you have a substitute ordinance prepared by legal, and the original, the adopted future land use is residential 35. And the proposal before you now, after the amended request, is residential 50. It's very rare that these things happen. I've only seen it one other time in my 7 years here, that the request is amended after the Planning Commission.
Even though rare, when issues do arise, I think we have to fix things when they do become rare.
Absolutely.
So I would suggest in the future, our people and your people have a provision, and then we won't have these kind of controversies coming before us, and we can move things smoothly to ease. So I'm going to ask that you take that back and make sure there can be a policy over the institute, or if this council needs to put something here, let us know so we can make that motion to get that done. I don't like to waste people's time.
Yeah,
Okay?
absolutely, Councilman. Thank you for that direction. I'd also just like to add, council has discretion to move forward tonight, reviewing the residential 50, but knowing that the Planning Commission has not reviewed that request. Neither the board, neither the Planning Commission as an appointed body or staff. So that is within your purview, or you may make a motion to send it back to the Planning Commission for the residential 50 request to go through the process. But I believe the applicant would probably like to provide a statement if that is the way that you decide to vote tonight.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilman Goode,
I'd like to hear from legal on this, or Ms. Docks on this.
Yeah, that was my question too.
Let's hear from legal. Ms. Velez is coming up before we proceed and don't waste any more time. What is the city's position on this at this time? Should we send this back and just come back, or should we move on this tonight? I want to hear a recommendation so we can move forward.
And could I just add why?
Councilman Carlson, you're recognized.
Thank you. Why wouldn't it just automatically go back to the Planning Commission first before coming here?
Okay, Susan Johnson Velez, Legal Department. So under state law requires that the Planning Commission conduct a public hearing on a comprehensive plan amendment. So that hearing has happened, albeit with a higher density category being the subject of the Planning Commission hearing. So the state law has been complied with because there has been a hearing. And again, it's an unusual circumstance where the request changes after that Planning Commission public hearing. So the procedures manual, again, that Ms. Malone referred to that you all adopt is silent as to what happens in a situation where there is a reduced request after the Planning Commission public hearing. So staff doesn't really have the option to automatically review it again.
Councilman Carlson, you're recognized.
So when someone asks for continuance, we ask for public input on the continuance. In this case, we can review the case, or we can send it back to the Planning Commission.
That is within council's discretion.
Would there
If-
be a process, this is an unusual situation, would there be a process where we would just ask for feedback from the public and from the applicant as to sending it back to the planning commission before we hear the entire case, or?
That's certainly within council's discretion to do as
And
well.
The first decision is whether we send it back to a planning commission or not, and then the second question is, would we review this and approve it?
Correct. I mean, council does have the discretion to proceed with the comprehensive plan amendment this evening with the understanding that you do not have feedback from either planning commission staff or the planning commission as to their thoughts on what the R50 category, whether that is consistent.
Well,
And Jennifer Malone, Planning Commission, I just want to point out too, for the record, it's impossible to predict how the Planning Commission would vote on a residential 50 request. So we know how they voted on the residential 83. I do not know how they would vote on the residential 50, nor what staff's finding would be. Thank you for that time.
No, just one last question for the attorney. If, would we have to make a motion to send it back, before we hear the case, should we make a motion to send it back to the planning commission and then hear from the applicant and the public just on that matter? And then if we decide to keep it, then we go through the case? Is that what you would recommend?
Yes.
Okay.
Finished?
Yeah, and I can make a motion after every.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
I'm curious about the applicant. Would the applicant, no, just asking in general.
Okay.
Is there a reason that an applicant could the applicant request that it go back through the planning commission, or do they not have that option?
Jennifer Malone, Planning Commission staff, the applicant, yes, at any time could have said that, we'd like another review to the Planning Commission, and we could have moved this meeting to accommodate that. That is accounted for in the procedures manual. We need, if there's a change of the request, we need it, I think 30 days, there's a deadline in the procedures manual before the Planning Commission hearing, but it's silent on what happens before the Tampa City Council hearing. So, and then we could have worked with them to re-review that and send it back through the process, if that was their request.
Okay, so that request was not made, I'm just clarifying.
That is correct.
Okay, and then I'm gonna second Councilman Good's recommendation, because I actually said it during my prep meeting for this. If there's anything we need to do ordinance-wise to change that, let us know, because we don't wanna waste anyone's time again, so please don't hesitate to get with one of our offices. We'll make the motion, just let us know, because we don't want this to happen again. But then I would like to hear from the applicant.
Are you finished?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, I am.
Councilman Miranda.
I was going to say, the way Councilman Carlson spoke about, we don't really know what the planning commission was gonna do. We know what it did in the 83, but we don't know what about the 50. So for us to get involved in this, maybe open some type of legality towards the city, I guess. I'm not sure. I'm not a lawyer.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
But that's my question to the applicant's attorney, is why you chose not to go back to the planning commission.
For the record, Julia Mandel, law firm of Gray Robinson, 401 East Jackson Street. I have been sworn in. This particular case, when it went to the planning commission, the whole issue before the planning commission had to do with the increase in density and whether or not it met the coastal high hazard policies. Candidly, it's not going to change with an R50. That is still the issue that is going to be in front of the planning commission. There are reasons we asked for the R83 because of the way your comprehensive plan requires you to apply for a comp plan amendment, meaning you have to apply for a comp plan amendment if there's a comp plan designation adjoining your property. The only comp plan designations adjoining our property, other than CMU 35 and R35, is R83. I can get more into the reasons why we're doing this to begin with, but I don't think that's your question. We went down to the R50, although it's not adjoining, because of our conversations and the feedback we were getting in the community as it related to concerns over the density. And again, I can get that into it more, but I don't know that anything's going to change at the planning commission level because their entire reasoning for the inconsistency had to do with the comp plan of R83 and density. R50 is going to technically increase the opportunity for density. The zoning will address that issue, and some of the things we've done in the process would address that issue. So I hope that answers your question, but that is why we did not ask to have it go back.
Okay, thank you. And then I have another question for legal, and then I'm done. If this were denied tonight, if the comp plan were denied, would they be able to come back to the city and sue and say we didn't have what we needed in front of us?
Well, it's a legislative decision, so
Okay,
it's not a quasi-judicial decision.
Okay.
So it's a policy decision that council would make as to whether or not the appropriateness of that designation on that property.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Goods.
See, that's why I have an issue with it. That's why I have an issue. We're gonna sit up here and hear something that we know there's a rarity. If we know it's not right now, I don't feel comfortable voting on something. I prefer it go back. I don't wanna sit and hear these people talk and still, that makes no sense to me. If it's not right, we just send it back and then we move on to the next case, but to just sit here and say we're gonna send it back and then hear some type of testimony, I don't agree with that. If it's wrong, or if it's a rarity, it needs to go back to the planning commission, let them make their decisions, and then it'll come back here. That's just my take on that. I'm one vote, but it's my take on that.
Are you finished?
Yes, I'm finished.
Okay, Councilman Miranda.
Along the same question of Mr. Goods, this is a rarity. This is not, I've never seen this before where you say you're not gonna see it after though they wanted something higher, you come out afterwards. So for clarity, I want the clear, I see a clerk here, nice lady here doing her job, and I see all the good people that missed dinner, and I see a lot of people here who are anxious one way or the other. So what I'm saying, in order for clarity, so that if something happens, we have something to hang our hat on, that it should not be heard. That's just my feeling. Because for the good people, for the developer, for the people who come here to say that they like it or don't like it, that's the best thing for them to have. Today, if this happens and it gets thrown back, we have to rehear it again, go back to this, and it's a mess.
Ms. Malone.
Thank you, Chairman Citro. I would just add, I thank you, council, for all of this great feedback. I'll definitely work with Susan Johnson-Velez's department and on how we can make that more clear in the manual. If you do choose to send it back to the Planning Commission tonight, I would ask that in your motion, it is for the February 2023 plan amendment cycle. I would really appreciate that because we take these 4 times a year. So that would help us for our processing. Thank you.
Councilman Carlson.
A couple questions. Did Councilmember Goods make a motion and Councilmember Hurtak second?
No one has made a motion.
Okay. And then, Ms. Johnson-Velez, if we made a motion to send it back, before you hear the case, if we make a motion to send it back to the Planning Commission, I think you said a minute ago, we should allow public comment, right?
It's within council's discretion.
And then, but it's
As to the-
legislative, not quasi-judicial, so.
Correct.
Is there evidence we can and can't use from the public and the applicant?
Again,
It's
My
legislative, so we can take any kind of feedback.
My suggestion would be that you limit it to the subject matter of it going back to the Planning Commission, and you did not get into the substance of what you would hear otherwise, whether it be the legislative matter of the comp plan amendment or the rezoning.
Yeah, just like a continuance, we would only be getting feedback on whether we should send it to the Planning Commission, not on the particular case itself.
Exactly.
Right.
Can you please make that statement to people here that are in chambers so that they understand, Mr. Shelby?
Well, what is council's pleasure, if that's council's? You want to do that?
I'd like to go ahead and make the statement.
Okay.
And then I will take a motion.
If there is a motion of city council to send this back to the Planning Commission, and that is open for discussion, and the chair asks whether you want to speak to that, remanding it back to the planning, I guess that would be the proper term, remanding it back to the planning commission, and ask that it be placed in the February 2023 cycle, that you do not discuss the merits of the case. You do not talk about, number one, the comp plan amendment, or number three, the rezoning. You do not talk about the facts. You only talk about your position as to whether it should be heard tonight or whether it should be returned to the planning commission to be heard as in, again, the designation being
A residential 50 request.
thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Mandel, I see you over there pacing. Do you want to say something?
Again, for the record, Julia Mandel, there's a couple things I want to clarify. First of all, the applicant has not brought the court reporter, so that is not our court reporter. Secondarily, if there's concerns about going forward today, I think it was stated to you that it's your discretion. So if you do hear it today, that's your discretion. If you send it back, that's your discretion. The applicant will waive any right to have that heard today, so that's not where the issue would be. So I wanted to make that clear for the purposes of the record, and also to just let you know that if you do decide to make a motion to remand it, I would like the opportunity, like 2 minutes, to discuss with my client what that would mean. So that way we can give you our whole position on that for the purposes of the record that is being made by someone, not us. So if, I would ask for that indulgence. Thank you.
Councilman Goods.
I make a motion to remand item number 1 filed CPA 2-13 for the February 23rd cycle.
Second.
Would you like to expand on that just a little?
I don't think I need to do it.
Yeah, for the.
Remanded to the planning
Oh,
commission.
remanded to the planning commission for review of the 8350 designation.
Or the R50 designation as part of the February 2023 cycle.
Remanded for the R50, back to the planning commission for R50 designation for February 23rd cycle.
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Goods. We have a motion made by Councilman Goods, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Mandel.
If I could ask for a 2-minute recess before you take public comment on that, so I can have a conversation with my client.
Without objection, we'll have a 2-minute recess. Thank you. City Council is back in session. Roll call vote. Roll call, please.
Carlson. Vieira. Maniscalco.
Here.
Hurtak.
Here is waiting online.
Yeah, Fiera said he's here.
Yeah, Vera's here.
Oh,
Thank you. Goods. Here. Miranda. Here. Citro.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
Thank you very much. We still have a motion on the floor made by Councilman Goode, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Ms. Mandel.
Thank you. Again, Julie Mandel for the record. I've had an opportunity to discuss this with my client, and they don't have an objection to this being remanded back to the Planning Commission. Our intent with this application is to be as transparent and as open as possible, and if that makes council more comfortable, I'm presuming it also makes members of the audience more comfortable. If that is where, that I will leave to council, but, I mean, certainly we would be fine going forward today, but I wanted to let you know that we don't object to it being sent back, if that is what you would like.
Councilman Miranda.
Set of circumstances that the planning commission did not approve the 83, am I correct?
Jennifer Malone, Planning Commission staff, the Planning Commission found the R83 request inconsistent.
Consistent, okay. So if the planning commission had found it consistent and the applicant wanted not 83 but 50, it'd be no problem. We'd have the hearing. However, the circumstances are not those at all. So it's putting an awkward position on all of us, and legal things happen for a reason, and this may be one of the reasons, because since I've been here, the planning commission has always put on record their feelings of whether consistent or inconsistent on every case. Am I correct?
Yes, and that's required by state law. Yes,
Right.
sir.
In this case, did that happen?
For a different request, it did.
Right.
Not for the one that is before you
So what
tonight.
happens now, if this council makes to hear this case, I think there's a possibility that some other things that we do not want to happen will happen to the city, because it has broken the chain of evidence that we've always looked at, not only the planning commission recommendation, but the city's staff recommendation. Am I correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
And what happens then is that this is something new. To me, it's never happened before. So I understand the anxiety that the public has, but we have to understand that it's putting this council and this city in a very difficult position.
Mr. Shelby.
Yes, sir. It is also, I've had this opportunity to discuss this with Ms. Johnson-Velez, and it's also my recommendation, in my opinion, that to open it to the floor creates a risk of council hearing things that may ultimately be inappropriate and unhelpful down the road. So it is my suggestion that council act on the motion on the floor and see where it goes from there, and not take public comment. If council feels compelled and feels it necessary in its discretion to take public comment, I will be very mindful of the ability to interrupt people, to be able to protect the record moving forward. But as I say to you, for the sake of expediency and for the sake of protecting the record, the best course of action would be to not take public comment and act on council's motion that it brought up on its own.
Councilman Maniscalco.
And I would agree. I don't want to taint the record, damage the record, do anything. We've made a motion. We have a second. We send it back so everything is clear, transparent, without any issues.
Any other comments? Again, we have a motion on the floor by Councilman Goode, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Any further discussion? Councilman Carlson.
Yes, I would prefer to hear from the public. We've heard from the applicant. I'd prefer to hear from the public only to this point. And if we did, I would ask that whatever groups there, I don't know who's for or against, but I would ask whatever groups to try to not have a bunch of people say the same thing, but just have a few people make their salient arguments about whether it should or shouldn't go back to the Planning Commission.
What is the pleasure of council on Councilman Carlson's suggestion?
And there's already a motion on the floor that sends it back, so we can vote on that for Mr. Chairman.
No. Because if it's the pleasure of council to hear the public's concern about this reprimanding back, then we would have to do that before the vote. Mr. Shelby.
Unless someone makes a motion to call the question, and then you vote on whether to call the question, and that ends the debate.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
The people are here. I don't have a problem in hearing if they want us to hear this or not, as long as no comment is made about the case itself. I tend to agree with Councilman Carlson.
A suggestion would be that council also has control over time limits. You don't necessarily have to afford 3 minutes for each speaker, because you're only speaking to one point. Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
You know, I always, Mr. Chairman, I recognize.
Councilman
I
Goode.
always believe in hearing from communities what they have to say. This case is a different type of case. I believe will taint the whole case totally, and I will call for the question.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Then that's without further debate. Then there's a motion now whether to call the question and end the debate and bring the main motion back to the floor. Did you want it?
All right, we go back to our main motion, which is made by Councilman Goode, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Let's have a roll call vote on that.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Citro.
Yes,
Motion carried unanimously.
thank you very much. Councilman Carlson.
Could we just get, for the sake of all the people that came, could we get,
I was gonna try and get there, but I thought Councilman Carlson was gonna speak to.
I would like, before everybody, I would like somebody from legal to explain to the public what the next steps are, so that they can understand what the dates and process will be.
Is that before, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, if I can interrupt, forgive me. But is that before or after the vote? You want somebody, because you voted to call the question. Calling the question ends the debate and brings the main motion back onto the floor. Did you want them to raise the issue? You want to raise the issue after because there wasn't a vote yet on whether to remand. Did you follow what I'm saying?
Sorry, it should be after the final vote.
If you don't understand, I'll explain it in a way you can. To call the question does not mean, to call the question in and of itself is a motion, a subsidiary motion to the main motion that's on the floor. That is the motion to whether to end the debate, and that motion passed, which now brings to council without further debate the main motion on the floor, which is Councilmember Goode's motion, seconded by Councilmember Maniscalco.
So the debate has been ended.
It has.
All right, now back to our original motion, made by Councilman Goode, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Any further debate on that? Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
This is to remand.
Yes.
Yes.
Right, you gotta say that.
Okay. Carlson,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Citro.
Yes,
Motion carried unanimously.
thank you.
So, Mr. Chair,
Councilman Carlson.
could we get somebody from legal to please explain to the public what the next steps are and what we think the dates are, or planning commission?
Jennifer Malone, Planning Commission staff. So as part of the February 2023 cycle, we're going to consider this amendment as part of February 2023 with the revised request of residential 50. That tracks for a May 8th Planning Commission hearing date. And then I believe it would be before you in either late May or early June, depending on scheduling we have to work out with city staff. So that date, you approve those by motion. So I'd like to make one statement for the record. The community will be re-notified of the request. So notice will be done again for the Planning Commission and the Tampa City Council date. Any,
Please.
does that answer the questions of council?
Any other further questions?
So you said it would probably come on May 8th, right? And then what happens after that? When would it come back to council?
They would come back to council in late May or early June. depending on scheduling with city staff. I'll let LaShawn speak to that. We have to make sure there's always room on your calendars.
I think the, the point is, and you all can correct me if I'm wrong, there's at least one opportunity for the public to go before the planning commission, and then there are gonna be at least 2 other opportunities to come before city council.
Yes, sir.
So instead of hearing it tonight, we don't usually hear cases that don't have an opinion from the planning commission. And since in effect the paperwork's not complete, we push it back to the planning commission to make a decision. But there are gonna be at least 3 more. Is the planning commission 1 meeting or more?
It's 1 meeting, so that it is May 8th, that's a Monday night? Okay, let me just double check.
And then from
Where's the
city,
calendar?
what would be the soonest that they could come back for a first hearing? And
It would be May 8th at 5:30
and do they have to
PM.
notice the public?
LaShawn, Doc Development Coordination. So the date that you have in June for your hearing is June 8th. So if they are at the Planning Commission May 8th, they can come back to City Council on June 8th.
And do they have to notice the public then?
The plan amendment will absolutely be renoticed. And I'll leave the zoning renotice
When
to
it
city
comes to
staff.
the rezoning, if the desire is to have them renoticed, then it would be at the direction of council or either at the applicant stating they would do so
Should we make a motion now?
voluntarily.
I'd like to make a motion that
Second.
that they, that we ask the applicant to renotice.
For the rezoning.
For the
which is
rezoning.
item 3. Because the comp plan amendment will be renoticed automatically. Item number 3 is the associated rezoning.
Yep.
And is that the desire to have the rezoning renoticed?
Yes, I just made a motion.
I second.
And so the public understands, sometimes when items are continued, there's no notice to the public, and so you'd have to watch it very carefully. I'm sure you're gonna watch it carefully anyway, whether you're for or against, but in this case, there's gonna be a requirement of the applicant to notice the public again.
A motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. Any discussion? Mr. Shelby.
Yes, thank you. The motion that you took for a remand was just solely for item number 1. You are now discussing item number 3. Item number 3 now is as part of the motion to continue. That would be, do you want to have it as a reset, or do you want to have it to a date certain with part of the motion, irrespective of it, is to have it noticed for the new date?
Correct. So there could be a motion to continue this item to June 8th, 2023, but with the direction for the applicant to provide notice.
But it can't be heard tonight anyway because because we did not vote on the first item, correct?
Correct, and maybe the applicant will want to make it.
So what happens if we don't make a motion? Then the
Well-
staff just schedules it?
Based on the request under the rezoning, the future land use amendment and the requested density from the applicant, if the comp plan amendment does not move forward, then the rezoning needs to be continued.
So I move that we can't hear it tonight, so and then we can't hear it before May 8th, so I would make a motion to continue the first reading until June 8th.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded. Councilman Carlson.
Could I add as the first item so that the public doesn't have to wait all night?
But did you just add to the motion that you already made, or is, yeah, okay.
Is that okay?
You're the seconder of the motion. Do you accept that?
Yes, I accept the amendment.
Thank you very much. We have a motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. Any further discussion, Mr. Shelby?
Just to confirm that it's 5:01 PM, and you were asking that it be first on the agenda.
Yeah, 5:01 PM first on the agenda.
Thank you, on May 8th, 2023.
Nope, June 8th.
June 8th.
Oh, June 8th, yes.
June 8th,
And
2023.
council after the comp plan amendment also.
Correct.
Comp plan amendment has to be first and then.
After the comp plan amendment, would you accept that amendment?
Yes.
Okay. And I accept that.
First and second on the agenda.
More time. We have a motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak with amendments. Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Miranda. Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
Viera,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, one more thing. Could someone from the planning commission just explain, I know that now we've just voted that the applicant has to notify the public about the first reading for the zoning, and you said there's an automatic notification for the hearing on the planning commission, but is that for the city council hearing on the planning commission or a plan, or is that the planning commission meeting?
Both items will be renoticed.
So you know, for the public, you know the dates, whether you're for or against, you know the dates now, May 8th and June 8th, plus the second hearing, which would be 2 weeks later. But you should be getting notices on May 8th and, for the May 8th hearing, and you should be getting 2 notices for the June 8th hearing.
Sure. So, Councilman, typically, I know this is not a typical night, but typically, we ask you to approve a motion to set a plan amendment on your hearings. And so when you set that, then that puts into motion the notice. One thing you can do is you could approve a motion to go ahead and set the plan amendment tonight for June 8th, but they would probably still do notice.
Oh, yeah.
The applicant would, if they're amenable to it, would still notice that, but then it's on your agenda, and then the public is aware that that motion was set, that the plan amendment will be on June 8th with the zoning.
I'll make a motion to schedule the
TACPA 2213.
Yes.
Adoption hearing.
Adoption hearing on June 8th at 5:01 to precede the zoning hearing.
Thank you.
We have a motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. Any discussion? Any further discussion? Mr. Shelby, you want to add anything? Ms. Susan Johnson Velez, do you want to add anything?
Nothing further, no.
Roll call vote.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
Viera,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you, council. We are going to take a 5-minute recess as we clear both chamber rooms. City Council is back in session. Roll call.
Carlson. Viera.
Here.
Maniscalco. Hurtak.
Here.
Goods. Miranda.
Here.
Citro.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
And before we start, I would like to thank both Ms. Edwards and Ms. Sharp for their help in instructing the people that came down here to speak on what needed to be done, where to go, and to manage this, the proceedings correctly. Thank you both very much for the work you did this evening. Our first hearing, our first agenda item right now is going to be agenda item number 4, file number REZ 22-110. Ms. Dock.
Thank you so much, Chairman and Council. LaShawn Dock, Development Coordination. Council, this next item is for the property located at 407 and 409 South Albany Avenue. This applicant is being represented by Tyler Hudson. This request is to rezone the property from RM16 residential multifamily to PD plan development, and this is for residential single-family detached and semi-detached uses on the site. And before I turn it over to the Planning Commission, I just wanted to explain briefly the history with this request. So the staff report that you have before you describes that this application was before you on April 14th, 2022 as file number REZ 2219. At that time, that case was heard and that request was from RM16 to PD for the same uses, the single-family detached and the semi-detached. And that request was denied. The applicant actually modified their plan. They went under consideration with the zoning administrator, and they are able to reapply, which is the application before you today. There was an error in the staff report, so I provided a new staff report today, this evening, which was laying there. I think it's been passed.
Yes, but I'm missing about 2 or 3 copies. Do you have any more extra copies, or is that it?
I do, and the clerk already has one.
Oh, the clerk has one? Okay.
Yes.
Then Councilman, you can give that to Councilman Goods, and I'll have one brought back.
And so the changes are now listed on the first page of the staff report, within the first paragraph. The changes made to the site plan are as follows. They have eliminated the waiver that was requested for the parking spaces required. That waiver is no longer required due to changes to the code recently, text amendments which were recently adopted. And also, they have changed the orientation of the front doors, and that is on the end units. Those doors now face South Albany Avenue. And the last thing that was done is they added the sidewalks along the north and the south on each side of the building, and those sidewalks connect from each unit to the adjacent sidewalk. So those changes allowed the applicant to come back before you this evening with the request before you. And I'll turn it over to the Planning Commission so they can do their presentation, and I'll come back and give my presentation. Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Jennifer Malone, Planning Commission staff. This is located in the Central Tampa Planning District within the Soho neighborhood. Hyde Park is the closest public recreational facility. 2 bus routes serve the subject site. It's within a level C evacuation zone. And here is an aerial of the site. So you're probably familiar with this because it came before you previously, as LaShawn stated. But here it is on South Albany. We have South Howard Avenue to the west of the site, and then Platt Street to the north. So we're all familiar with the commercial bars and restaurants along South Howard Avenue. And then along this portion of South Albany Avenue, there's a variety of housing types. A lot of townhouses, townhouse development, a lot of single-family attached development. So this is the future land use map, it is residential 35. And then along South Howard Avenue and West Platte Street is community mixed use 35, which allows for those commercial uses, and we see that future land use primarily along our corridors. So, the comprehensive plan does provide, encourages infill development, so that way we can have an adequate amount of land for residential development to provide for our growing population. And due to it being in this area of the city, near transit options, employment and entertainment options, it would be suitable for increased housing choices. So we did the density analysis, and we found that the average existing density on this portion of South Albany Avenue is 16.28 units per acre, which is a little bit below the maximum that can be considered under the residential 35. If this is approved before you tonight, this would be developed at 20 dwelling units an acre. So still below that residential 35, which is the maximum that the comprehensive plan has planned for this area. So our finding before you tonight is consistent, which is different than how you saw this previously, and that's because the applicant worked with the Planning Commission to label entrances and provide safe pedestrian connection from South Albany Avenue to those units, which meet the intent of the comprehensive plan, LU policy 9.2.6, which states that single-family attached development shall encourage the orientation of front doors and sidewalks, of the front doors to sidewalks and streets. So the way that the front doors are labeled, and there's a clear sidewalk pedestrian connection from South Albany, we felt that that met the intent of this policy, and that is why the Planning Commission finding is consistent tonight, as well as the many other policies in the plan about encouraging infill development, etc. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Malone? Thank you.
Thank you again, Council. LaShawn Dock, Development Coordination. And this request before you, this PD, would allow the development of 6 units. That's 4 townhome units and 2 single-family detached units on the site. The lot contains 12,845 square feet. And I'm going to put the site plan up for this request and just zoom in a little. So this is, to orient you, this is South Albany Avenue on the plan, and this is the property line, which is identified in a dotted line. Here are the 2 buildings that have your 2 units each on each structure, and then these are the single-family detached units. So access to the site is from Albany. These are the units that had the doors which were reoriented to face Albany, and then this is the sidewalk that was placed to the north and to the south, connecting the units. And then this is the internal drive. And the maximum building height for the request is 35 feet. And I have the zoning atlas to show. Let me zoom back out again. Sorry. So this is the site that's located here, identified in red. And you can see, just to orient you, on the site, on this map, this is Swan Avenue, this is De Leon, this is Albany Avenue. And you can see that there's, this site is surrounded with various PD zonings. There's RM16, residential multifamily, which is the existing. And then you have, as you head towards Howard Avenue, the commercial zoning that runs along that corridor. And then I have pictures of the site. So this is the site. In question, this is also another view of the site. This is east of the site. See the residential. This is the view looking south on Albany. This is the view looking north on Albany. And this is north of the site. The DRC staff has reviewed the request and finds the request consistent. There are modifications to be made to the site plan between first and second reading, and I'm available if you have any questions. Thank you, Council.
Any questions for Ms. Dodd? Applicant?
Good evening, council. I need to be sworn in, and I think there might be some others that likewise need to be
All
sworn
right,
in.
let's see if we can't do this all in one shot. If there's anybody in chambers that have not been sworn in, please rise. I think that's,
It's just us.
no one else? Raise your right hand to be sworn in. Thank you.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Good evening, council. My name is Tyler Hudson. My address is 400 North Ashley Drive. With me here this evening is my colleague Alex Shaler. The actual property owner and applicant is Ryan Basham, who's available to answer questions, and our architect Alex Rios is here as well. Just want to reinforce a couple points that LaShawn and Jennifer have already made. I think we're familiar with where the site is. It's in the Courier City, Osceola neighborhood. It's just about 2 blocks east of Howard, so about 2 blocks east of what you think of as the Bar District. It's in an area where there's a very pervasive development pattern of multifamily dwellings as well as townhomes, which Alex is going to talk about in a little bit, but it's functionally two lots. It's 2 lots that currently each have 1 home on them. What we're proposing is to make each of those lots house 3 units. So going from a place where 2 families can live to 6. As Jennifer alluded to, that's less than the 9, which is the maximum allowable under the code. If you went to the 9, you'd probably have to do that in an apartment configuration. So I think what we have proposed here with the 6 units is about what we can do without by drastically changing the massing and the look of the site. LaShawn stole the thunder on this and did a much better job of going through, but you've seen this before. It might sound familiar. You all see a lot of these cases. This was before you in April. It was denied on a 4-3 vote. There was an inconsistency finding from the Planning Commission. This was one where we talked a lot about whether we could add between first and second reading, which there was not a second reading, front doors. There's a land use policy under the comprehensive plan, 9.16, that says that the frontages of single-family homes should face the street, and that makes some sense. Our project fell short of that initially, so we went back to the drawing board. It really just adds to the frontages for the units on Albany. You now enter from Albany straight in. You don't walk up the drive aisle with cars and into the side for those 2 front units, so we've made that change. The other concern was that the townhomes were a little bit stranded, and that to get there, you'd again have to walk through the drive aisle. So what we did was add a perimeter sidewalk to connect those so that folks will walk off of Albany and the sidewalk to a perimeter sidewalk that connects to their front door, but those front doors do face, of course, outwards because they can't face front because the frontage units are there, as Alex will show. So with that, Alex is going to talk a little bit about how we've reoriented the site and hope to gain your approval this evening.
Alex Shaler, 400 North Ashley Drive, for the record. This is a site plan. It looks relatively similar to the plan that you saw under 2219. However, as Tyler mentioned, the front 2 units are flipped with those entry doors where the red arrows are pointing directly accessible from South Albany Avenue, and then the perimeter sidewalks to the north and to the south, which provide direct entrances not just to the patios, but to an entry point of every single unit on this site. And LaShawn touched on this too, that the surrounding zoning, and this is currently zoned RM16, which does permit multifamily development. However, some of the dimensional regulations in the RM16 zoning make development of multifamily on some of these properties very difficult, especially ones that permit a higher land use like this, the R35, like medium density uses. And as you can see, this isn't a hardship suffered only by our site and in our applicant, but of a lot of other sites within the surrounding area as well. Staff did find this application consistent across every single reviewing department, including the Planning Commission as well. And we are requesting 1 waiver in conjunction with the application, and this is touched on a little bit by Tyler, but although we do have those front 2 units facing the street, we are requesting a waiver for the remaining 4 units on site, given that we don't have the width along Albany Avenue. We only have 90 feet of frontage, with each unit being roughly 32 feet. We can only fit so many up there along the road. But in order to accommodate that, we've made a few different site improvements, and this goes with the units facing the external. There were some concerns with the original rezoning that were expressed by the neighbors that this development, quote, turned its shoulder on the surrounding community, and that's absolutely something that we didn't want. So we came back and made some facade enhancements, and our architect is here to speak to those as well if needed. But as you can see, the elevations on the left were part of the original rezoning. The elevations in the dotted green line are what is being approved before you tonight. As you can see, this shows a lot more of facade articulation that we felt like really included the neighboring lots. The second improvement is the perimeter sidewalk, which we've mentioned, allowing direct access from Albany to every unit along the northern and southern boundary. The third one being the flipping of the units. And the fourth one being, as LaShawn mentioned, the parking code has changed, so we are no longer requesting a parking waiver. All 12 spaces that are required under the city's code are provided on site. That was also a concern that was mentioned with the original rezoning, was the excessive on-street parking on Albany, and for fear that it would overcrowd the street. So as mentioned, all of the parking that is required for this development will be provided on site. The setbacks was another issue that was brought up in the original rezoning, and so we wanted to address that one more time. What we're proposing is a 10-foot front setback, and as I had mentioned earlier, some of the stricter dimensional regulations in the RM16 zoning category require a 25-foot setback from the property line. However, that's a standard requirement, and as you can see here, we're providing roughly 26.5 feet from the edge of Albany. There is a significant amount of right-of-way between the property line and the road. So although we're only providing a 10-foot setback on site, there is an effectively 26.5-foot buffer from the road for this site. Tyler alluded to this earlier, the fact that, and so did Jennifer, the fact that this allows up to 30 dwelling units per acre. Based off of our parcel size, we could have 9 units. We're proposing 6 units, which we feel is a very modest proposal and does fit into the community. And the reason for that is because, also as alluded to earlier, there is a ton of multifamily development in the area. The red stars on the screen are showing the townhomes/villas that are in the area, and then the green stars are showing multifamily developments. So as you can see, the culmination of all the stars located on the screen in this specific area of the city, south of Platte, east of Howard Avenue, is this very, very prevalent multifamily development in the area, and we feel that's a great precedent for our request tonight. And with that, I'll conclude the presentation, and we are available for any questions.
Any questions? Councilman Carlson.
For either of you, it looks like some of the same folks that were here before in the community are back, and they'll speak in a minute. Could you tell us what you know of their objections and what your response is? I know you have a rebuttal, but could you just give us some highlights of it?
Sure. Based off of the letters that were submitted, and obviously, I mean, we'll hear them speak in a second, and based off of the original concerns from the prior application, as I mentioned, it seemed like the fact that this was an isolated development with the buildings facing internal, not engaging the side. Another big one being not engaging Albany Avenue, which is why we flipped the units 3 and 6 to face the street, so that whenever you're walking by as a pedestrian, they mentioned, it's a very pedestrian heavy street, there's a lot of bicyclists. When somebody is effectively walking or biking in front of the site, you see the frontage of these 2 units along Albany Avenue, and you're engaged like you would with 2 single family homes being placed on these parcels. And then the third one being the traffic. There was multiple mentions of concern with the parking waiver, that it would cause overflow parking on Albany Avenue, which, as mentioned, they had said was already really crowded as it is. So all of the parking that's required under the city's code, all 12 spaces, are provided on-site internal to the development.
And these buildings are not protected under any kind of historic?
No. They're in the National Historic District, but they're not in the local historic district, so no ARC jurisdiction here.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Does this end your presentation?
Yes.
Is there anyone in the audience, is there anyone here in chambers who wishes to speak? Agenda item number 4, file number REZ 22-110.
Good evening. I was sworn in. My name is Lisa Birnbaum, and my husband Don Morrill and I live at 405 South Albany. As next-door neighbors to the 2 bungalows to be demolished, you may remember we spoke at the April hearing. We didn't expect this rezoning plan to be resubmitted and accepted before a year's time. We're now here to explain again our persistent distress about such an unsightly development in our neighborhood. The developer got to work in May, the record shows, just after the project's denial, to get the waiver for this early hearing. But his efforts to improve the plan were shockingly limited, just a couple of concessions, not true gestures toward a suitable, appealing design. He has ignored the many issues raised by neighbors, and now a petition against the buildings has been signed by dozens. The more we examine the materials, the more it's clear my husband and I wouldn't merely be living a few feet beside a massive building, but when sitting every day on our screen porch, also behind and beneath it, there would also be a 5-foot wall around the building's outsized protrusion toward the sidewalk, blocking our southern view of the street. The setback looks to be less than the 10 feet stated on the site plan, and we don't see an exception to the 20 or maybe 25-foot requirement explained elsewhere. No trees would diminish the stark, incongruous expanse of concrete to the right of our home. And of course, residents all along the street would not be able to ignore the immense eyesore in the middle of the block. Some living across the street would be looking down a broad driveway, the same width of the street, cutting the block in half and ending in a not particularly picturesque alley. The chance of meeting the many walled-in occupants of the new development would be slim, given that 4 of the 6 units would face each other across the wide concrete driveway. From the start, this dooms neighborly contact, a prized quality for the communities in the Tampa Comprehensive Plan. Small patios have been renamed entries in the latest drawing, though without a doubt little used for comings and goings, since they are located on the other side of the garages. Others will speak here this evening, and many neighbors have sent letters. We are really encouraged by the vitality of our community, and we wish to keep it that way despite inevitable growth. Thank you for considering the damaging impact this proposed development would have on so many of us living on and near Albany Avenue. And in conclusion, I just want to say that I looked at a lot of documents, and I thought that I saw in this latest final staff report an inconsistent from the Planning Commission, not a consistent. So I would like to have that clarified. Thank you.
Thank you.
Donald Morrill, 405 South Albany Avenue. My wife has just articulated a number of the issues that are there with the problem with this development. And the upshot is that this design is substantially unchanged from what it was in April. It's too big. It may technically conform to these the guidelines and the stars, but it is too big. It is an architectural assault on the street. It's bunker versus bungalow, really. It's too large and it requires too many variances. There are some large townhouses on the street, but they're set back from the street. And they're set back on the street because in those developments, they're either duplexes or fourplexes. They're not trying to build 6 of these things. It's just too many. There's a 24-foot wide street, the driveway, running perpendicular to Albany. It's as wide as Albany, and it runs through. That's essentially cuts the block in half. The thing looks essentially like an office park. It increases the impervious area dramatically, and we already know that we have drainage problems along Albany. Nothing has been addressed about that. And personally, I've got a lot of problems with it because we got some oak trees that are right on the property line. They need these variances to push this thing clear out to the property line. So we're gonna be impacted unnecessarily just because they want to build it bigger. And we are, I think, without any clarity about the storm drain situation, facing potential flood hazards in our own home. I mean, and also, to be strictly personal about it, is going to destroy our quality of life. We've lived on Albany Avenue 30 years. We've been in this house 25. Other people have come along and tried to buy those houses and live in them, fix them up. The fates didn't allow that to happen. And we understand that we have to have development, but this is overkill. This is too much. Thank you.
Thank you. One of the speakers asked for clarification on whether there was an inconsistency.
Yes, thank you, Council. LaShawn, Dock Development Coordination. So the final report from the Planning Commission with the revised site plan had a finding of consistent. Whether recommendation was consistent. The report that was sent out initially did not include that latest report from the Planning Commission, so it was resent to include it. So what they may have seen was the initial submittal.
Thank you.
But it is consistent from Planning Commission. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
My name is A.J. Charette. I live at 109 South Westland Avenue. I've been
neighbor for 24 years in this area. I did a petition that I believed was sent to you, but apparently it wasn't. I had 30 neighbors sign this petition, all against this development. And basically, because it's too much for the area, the area was designed 100 years ago, and it has a streetscape, and your houses are all in alignment. Now you're having a 35-foot story building 10 feet out of whack with the rest of that street, right in the middle of this block, which is inconsistent with a development. And we're here 100 years later, and we're playing a game that is like, it doesn't make sense. Plus, this neighborhood was developed 100 years ago. 100 years ago, if you look at these streets, you had streets, houses that had alley access and garages in the back. The other side of the street had driveways. Now you've taken this area and you're putting sidewalk, or you're putting garages and driveways on both sides of the street. This is the downtown district, I believe, is it not? Doesn't the downtown district go to Howard Avenue now? And we have consistent parking on the parkways. We have consistent blocked sidewalks. The American Disabilities Act is enforced in a historic district. This is still a historic district. It's labeled that way. The plans that you have for you to take a look at what's happening give you no idea of what is happening as far as where your sidewalks are, where your parking is. And the city planning and city council are unaware of the hazard of the current development as the streets. The city development of this neighborhood of Swan has been created a street parking problem. Too many apartments and not enough parking. Plus, code enforcement does not complete sidewalks in these developments. They have no funds for such expenditures. We recommend all development stop until the city can correct the past development errors. We recommend the city correct these missing sidewalks and infrastructure. We also recommend the developers and code department be responsible for these errors, and that records kept on fines can be levied, so incompetent developers and code employees are not allowed to develop or work in code departments. And on item 17, page 1, pre-development, post-development, impervious area, reviewed during this, excuse me?
Thank you, sir.
The driveway that you have 12 vehicles parking there, and you have a drainage problem, you have a sinkhole at the corner of Albany.
Thank you, sir. Your 3 minutes is up. Thank you very much. Councilman Carlson.
Could I just get somebody from staff? I think what he was referring to at the beginning is that area is in the same planning district as the properties north of it. Can somebody just explain to the public what the planning district means? And then also, is there anybody here to testify of a sinkhole in that area?
Jennifer Malone, Planning Commission. The comprehensive plan states that this is in the central Tampa planning district. Although I will clarify, downtown is included in that, but it's not regulatory. So, well, it is, but it doesn't have like land development code regulations. Not, yeah. Am I answering the question correctly? Yeah. So it's
It doesn't, it's just in the same planning area, but it doesn't follow the same rules as downtown, because it's.
That, thank you, yes, that is what I was trying to say. Thank you, Councilman, yes, exactly.
Is there anybody, do we have anybody who knows about a sinkhole in that area? Okay.
I'm sorry, ma'am, are you asking for someone to clarify that? Because if that's the case, I'm sure we could find out that and we'll move on to the next case.
Yeah, I was just
and
curious.
Come back to this one.
I was just curious if anybody could testify as to, it doesn't, if you don't know, it doesn't mean that it's not there, it just, does anybody know anything about it? Thank you.
Yes, LaShawn, Doc Development Coordination,
Please.
and
Ms.
we
Doc.
do not have staff here that could testify to that, whether it exists or not.
What is your choice, Councilman Carlson?
We'll just continue on with public comment, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Dara Simon. I've lived at 410 South Albany Avenue for over 20 years. My townhouse is directly across the street from 407 and 409 South Albany. I'm opposed to the proposed rezoning of 407 and 409 South Albany for the following reasons. The applicant is demolishing 2 historic 1920s bungalows to construct 6 townhouses. These bungalows are located within the Hyde Park National Historic District. In addition, the reduction of the setbacks on all sides is well out of conformity with the rest of the block. No other structure on the street has such setbacks. The only reason for the setbacks is for the applicant to maximize the square footage of the units and get every last dollar out of the property. The proposed driveway, that's 24 feet wide, if that gets built, I will look down a 24 feet wide driveway to the back alley from the front of my house. I have serious concerns about my safety and the safety of my neighbors as a result of having this direct access to the back alley. I fully recognize the need for redevelopment in the area. The townhouse I built is a result of redevelopment of a dilapidated house. The difference is that the design of my townhouse fits with the architecture of the street and contributes to the charm of the area. Part of the reason I chose the location I did was because of the character of the street and the historic bungalows there. To put up these 3-story concrete slabs with absolutely zero architectural features in place of those bungalows is a travesty. Since the original application for rezoning was denied in April, the applicant has taken minimal steps to rectify the problems that were identified. In addition, me and several of my neighbors were back here in December, and with no notice to us, the applicant asked for an extension of the application. In conclusion, I'm asking you to protect the character of our neighborhood and stop this proposed development. There's too many historic bungalows that are being torn down to make room for these massive multi-unit structure that have diminished the aesthetic quality of the neighborhood. If you choose to ignore the requests of the residents in the street, at a very minimum, please ask the applicant to redo the design and limit the size and scale of those townhouses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Tamara Hine, and I live at 410 South Albany Avenue. I'm Dara's neighbor. We too live in a townhouse. It's a quadplex with 2 units up front, Spanish style to match the neighborhood, the pink house you may have seen in the picture. I moved in 20 years ago, same time Dara did. I moved in for the gorgeous view of the bungalows across the street. So imagine my surprise when I found out that the property had sold a while back and that development was coming in. I'm not opposed to development, but I'd like the development to remain within character of the neighborhood. We've worked very hard making this into a residential area. It can be difficult. There are houses on the street further down that look like they need some upkeep, maybe some tear down, and some replacement. One of the other houses, or I should say one of the other developments that you approved not too long ago, actually is going to be one of those positive additions to the neighborhood. It will bring character to it and fit within the scope of the neighborhood we want to keep. When I look at the design that this applicant has brought forward, I think my major concern is the fact that you've got basically 6 units facing each other and not really facing street side. To me, it reminds me of my corporate past, living in corporate housing. It's not very open and friendly to a neighborhood that we're trying to encourage people to raise their families in. I mean, we're out here basically trying to put up Christmas lights, trying to do Halloween, right? Trying to make things more friendly in a neighborhood that, to be honest with you, was basically just filled with a bunch of yuppies many years ago. That is why I am hoping you will give some very strong consideration and not basically rubber stamp this. I'm afraid if we don't get this stopped now, what recourse are we going to have? It's really going to change the character of the neighborhood. And we know our neighbors. We know them very well. And we would like for whoever ends up living in the 407 to 409 properties basically to be our friendly neighbors and not be in a closed-off situation where they basically just drive their vehicles up this fake road, right, down the middle, and never say a word to us. So thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Shelby.
Yes, and just a quick reminder to council and the public that petitions do not, in quasi-judicial matters, constitute competent substantial evidence. Just so that a reminder of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone online? Is there anyone else in chambers who would like to speak to agenda item number 4? Mr. Hudson, rebuttal.
Good evening, Council. Tyler Hudson for the record. You just heard from neighbors who obviously love their neighborhood, and for good reason, because it's a really great neighborhood. It's a neighborhood that a lot of other people would like the opportunity to live in. It's a very walkable neighborhood, it's a very bikeable neighborhood, but there aren't enough units available. There's enough supply of housing to deal with all the demand of folks who want to live in these types of friendly, welcoming neighborhoods that it sounds like this particular street is. The comprehensive plan that this council has inherited said that up to 9 units of development can go here. That was the foresight to say that given where this location is, there probably should be more than just 1 home per lot. And we'll say there can be up to 9 units on these 2 lots combined. And again, we're asking for 6. There's a couple things I want to note. The first, there are a lot of concerns or opinions about design. Design is not something that this council or this city has chosen to regulate on this land. This council certainly well knows in other parts of the city, design is heavily regulated. It is not regulated here. This is in the National Historic District. From a local perspective, that is not relevant. It is not in the local historic district. There's no elevated historical protection here. Council can change that. Council did it recently for the Dobyville neighborhood. Council has not done that here. And regarding setbacks, I think as we showed, and we put some evidence into the record, the setbacks that we're proposing of 10 feet is not far off from the 1214, that's the block averaging. With that, I'd like to note that this is a quasi-judicial proceeding. You all are not wearing judicial robes, and only one of you has a gavel, but this is a situation where there are some elevated standards about what counts as evidence and what doesn't. And think about Lady Justice, right, as a metaphor for a judicial proceeding, the scales. On the one hand, in support of this application, you have the experts at the Planning Commission who have found that this application is consistent with the comprehensive plan. That's the first requirement under not your local law, but under state statute. Second requirement is that it's consistent with the land development regulations. Every single agency, I think it numbers about a dozen, that has reviewed this application has found it consistent. So this is consistent with the Planning Commission's interpretation of the comprehensive plan. It's consistent with the Development and Growth Management Department's interpretation of the Land Development Code. In addition to that, we believe furnished into the record a memo of compliance with the Land Development Code's PD purpose requirements, and we gave the presentation before you this evening. On the other side of the scale, you have neighbors who express some very strong and well-intentioned and absolutely heartfelt opinions about things like the bulk of the site, the design of the site, potential changes to their quality of life that we certainly hope don't happen if this were to get approved. And those are all fine to bring before you in public comment, but that is not substantial or competent evidence. And the purpose of public notice isn't to poll the neighborhood. If that was the reason, we can make these decisions on Facebook or Nextdoor. The purpose behind behind the public notice is to give folks notice and an opportunity to be heard. But under the laws that govern these types of decisions, what has to be brought forth is substantial and competent evidence. And with respect to the neighbors and with respect to this council, that is not what was brought forward in public comment. There was some opinion, but not evidence. I believe that when you weigh the balance with the consistency determination from your staff at the Planning Commission and from your staff of the Development and Growth Management, the presentation we gave, we believe there is substantial and competent evidence in the record to support an approval of this application. And I do not believe there is any substantial or competent evidence to support a denial. And with that, I thank you for your time, especially hearing this for a second time in 1 year. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thanks.
Any further questions? Ms. Dodd.
Yes, Council, thank you. LaShawn Dock, Development Coordination. Council, in looking at the plan and seeing the redesign, there is an additional waiver that is required on this site plan, which could be added between first and second reading if it is approved this evening, and that is a waiver to 27-162 for the building separation. The requirement is 15 feet, and so the waiver would be added to the plan in between first and second reading. And I wanted to put that on the record.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
What is it?
It is a waiver for the building separation.
Yes, but what is the separation?
Oh, it's at, with the two doors, I believe it's at 7.
Okay.
7-6. This is the area here, I can put it on the Elmo for you. So you have the two buildings that are located here, and now.
I'm sorry, Ms. Dock, if you can, I'm sorry.
IT, can we please have the Elmo? Thank you. We got it. We're good.
So this is unit 2, and then unit 3 is here. So this is the two buildings, but these are the points of entry that are on each side. So they're reducing it for the separation between the two, and then the same is going to apply for these two buildings that are south, the building separation.
Ms. Stock.
Yes.
Ms. Stock, my question is that separation is smaller than the 15-foot that most fire departments would require, but yet fire rescue found that consistent, found the site plan consistent.
Correct, Chairman Citro. I'm LaShawn Dock, Development Coordination. That requirement is a zoning requirement for the building separation, and then there's another building code requirement. And I believe that separation is 5 feet.
Thank you, Ms. Dock. Councilman Carlson.
Could you just tell us what could be built here by right versus what the applicant's requesting?
So right now, the property is currently zoned RM16, which is residential multifamily. So it would allow for either multifamily units for residential, although you see some of the single family that's surrounding, but it has the multifamily zoning district on it.
And how
or
many,
even a single family detached.
And how many units could be built now without getting any approvals?
So it has the future land use of R35, so you can have 30 units per acre. And there are 20 units per acre, so I think there's a maximum. If I can get my report for a second, please.
Great, thank you.
9 units is the maximum number of units that could be built on the site with the current zoning. But you would have to meet RM16 zoning standards. with the setbacks as mentioned, as I think Tyler presented, or either Alex, yeah.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Hurtak. Thank you.
Thank you, council.
Move to close.
We don't have Vieira on the thing.
Yes. Councilman Vieira, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You're there.
Okay, yeah. Can
Thank
you see me? Can you guys see me?
Yes, we're good. You're good. You're good.
Okay,
We have a
I'm
motion
here.
closed by Councilman Maniscalco.
I just wanted to,
Mr. Shelby.
after Ms. Doc's comments, I just wanted to make sure that the petitioner had nothing more to add.
Nothing more from the applicant. Thank you, council.
We have a motion to close by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. All in favor?
Aye.
What is the pleasure of council?
I'll take a shot.
Councilman Carlson.
I would move to deny REZ 22-110 for the property located at 407-409 South Albany Avenue due to the failure of the applicant to meet the burden of proof to provide competent substantial evidence that the development as conditioned and shown on the site plan is consistent with the comprehensive plan and city code, and that the applicant's failure to meet its burden of proof with respect to the requested waiver. The proposed rezoning does not comply with the land use policy 9.3.8, which requires new residential development projects to be minimally disruptive to adjacent areas. The proposed development as shown in the site plan does not promote or encourage development that is appropriate in location, character, and compatibility with the surrounding uses. We heard competent substantial evidence from the community about how the waivers affect the consistency and character of the neighborhood and would have a detrimental effect on the neighborhood.
We have a motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. Is there any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Miranda,
No.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Goods,
No.
Vieira,
No.
Maniscalco,
No.
Citro.
No.
Motion did not pass. With Miranda, Goods, Vieira, Maniscalco, Citro voting no.
Councilman Maniscalco.
Thank you very much. My motion then would be to approve this plan development PD residential rezoning with the waivers as stated. This is RAZ 22-110. I move an ordinance being presented for first reading consideration, ordinance rezoning property in the general city of 407 and 409 South Albany Avenue in the city of Tampa, Florida, and more particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification RM16 residential multifamily to PD plan development residential single family detached and semi-detached, providing an effective date. And I'll state some findings and fact. We saw consistency all the way through with the reports. I find that this was in compliance with applicable goals, objectives, and policies in the comprehensive plan in regards to the Planning Commission staff report. Specifically, the proposed rezoning is consistent with land use policies 9.2.1 and 9.7.1, which encourage infill development to provide an adequate amount of land for residential development to provide for Tampa's growing population. Also, in compliance with Land Development Code Section 27-136, the purpose of the site plan control district. For example, proposed development as shown on the site plan promotes or encourages development that is appropriate in location, character, and compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood. And then the waivers in compliance with 27-139, number 4, such as the design of the proposed development is unique and therefore in need of a waiver. The requested waiver will not substantially interfere with or injure the rights of others whose property would be affected by the waiver. And that includes the waivers that are stated. And is there a revision sheet? Yes. Revision sheet as well, yes.
A motion made by Councilman Maniscalco. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Vieira. Any further discussion? Roll call. Councilwoman Hurtak.
I'm gonna vote no on this just because the waiver does impact the feel of the neighborhood. And I just, the internal courtyard thing, that doesn't encourage neighborliness.
Councilman Carlson?
Yeah, and the same thing, the evidence that was shown and testimony was shown shows that it's possible to build multifamily in this neighborhood without being outside the character and feel of the neighborhood, which this project does. So I will be voting no as well. Thank you.
No further discussion. Roll call vote.
Viera,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Hurtak,
No.
Carlson,
No.
Goods,
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Motion passed with Hurtak and Carlson voting no.
Agenda item number 6, file number REZ 22-77.
Yes, thank you, Council. LaShawn, Doc Development Coordination. Council item 6, I'm sorry, if we can have the date of the second reading.
Second reading.
Wait.
Excuse us.
Just a second.
Excuse us, ma'am. 1 second, please.
Second reading and adoption will be held on February 2nd, 2023 at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council. LaShawn, Doc Development Coordination. Item number 6 is REZ 2277. This is for the property located at 310 West Columbus Drive. The applicant is represented by Steve Michelini. This request is to rezone the property from RM16 residential multifamily to PD planned development for single-family attached use on the site. And I'll turn it over to Planning Commission for their report, and I'll come back and give my report. Thank you.
Jennifer Malone, Planning Commission staff. This is in the Central Tampa Planning District, the Tampa Heights neighborhood, and the Tampa Heights Urban Village. Robert C. Gardner Park is the closest public recreational facility. There is a transit stop near the site served by Heart Route 15 and is within evacuation zone E. I will now show an aerial. So it's located along West Columbus Drive. To the north, we have the Boys and Girls Club and then the Villa Madonna School. West Columbus Drive, on this segment, there's some single-family detached, and there's also some two-family dwelling units here. So it's a little bit of a mixture of housing types, and we're typically residential south of West Columbus Drive. Although the future land use, I apologize, yes, future land use is residential 35, which is a very residential future land use category. To the north is residential 20 in the brown, which is a little bit lower. The blue is public, semi-public, so that's recognizing that the school to the north of the subject site. And then the pink is community mixed use 35. So as you see the pattern at North Massachusetts and North Ola here would transition to more commercial uses because that's what the future land use allows. And so the request before you is for residential. It's consistent with the adopted future land use designation. We did find that the subject site would have an overall density of 23 dwelling units an acre, when the maximum is up to 35 dwelling units an acre. So that's consistent with what the comprehensive plan has planned for in this area of the city. It is within an area of the city that's near transit and employment options, and we could also consider this to be vacant or underutilized because there's not as the site can accommodate more dwelling units in this area of the city to meet the need for housing for Tampa's growing population. We also found that the design was met as well, satisfying LU policy 9.2.6 with the sidewalks connecting the front doors off of West Columbus Drive. So that concludes my presentation. It is consistent with the comprehensive plan. As always, I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Malone? Thank you.
Thank you again, Council. LaShawn, Doc Development Coordination. And this rezoning request, Council, to the PD is, as mentioned, to allow for 8 residential single-family attached units on the site. The request would allow for construction of 2 structures on the site, and I'll put up the site plan. And let me zoom in on it here. So this is the site, which is located on West Columbus Drive, and trying to straighten it up here just a second. So this is Columbus Drive, and this is the entry to the site. And these are the two buildings that are proposed. There are two structures proposed. Each structure would contain 4 units. Each unit would contain 2-car garages, which are internal to the site, and then there are 2 parking spaces, 1 each on each side of the building located to the south. This is the internal sidewalk that is mentioned, that Jennifer mentions, that was provided by the applicant. And then these units, which are the end units, Unit 1 and Unit 8, have the door that orients to Columbus Drive. And the proposed setbacks are to the north 5 feet, the south is 0 feet, the east and the west have a 7-foot setback. The maximum building height is proposed at 40 feet. So with this site being zoned RM16 and with the future land use of R35, it does allow for a total of 10 dwelling units on site by right. In the R35 land use category, as Jennifer has mentioned, you can have up to 30 units per acre. So this request is before you for a PD with less units than what would be allowed in that land use category. But it is due to the waivers requested on site and also the setbacks that are proposed. If the applicant were to develop in the RM16 zoning district, they would have to meet all of the standards required for RM16. So let me take a look and show you, if I could show you just a second, the zoning map. Let me zoom out just a little. So this is the zoning map of the area. This is the property that's identified here in red. This is Columbus Drive. This is North Boulevard. This is Ola, which is east of the site. So you can see that this site is surrounded. There are a couple of RM24 zoning districts in the area. Other than that, a large majority of the area is RM16. And then you have, as you get along Boulevard, a couple of spots, the commercial zonings along with residential and PD zoning, residential multifamily. And I have pictures of the area and of the site. And so I'll start at the east and then work my way to the site and move around. So this is east of the site on Columbus. And we'll just head west. This is also east of the site. This is moving closer to the site, which is next door. This is the site on Columbus. That is if you're looking south. This is west of the site. Then this is the school, which is north of the site. Villa Madonna, this is another view of the site, of north of the site. This is southwest of the site, so this is on the south when you are on Amelia. And this also is south of the site on Amelia, and then this is another property. Those are all south of the site. And the DRC staff has reviewed the request and finds the request consistent, and site plan modifications are required between first and second reading. And I'm available if you have any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Dock?
No,
Thank
just for
you.
the record, I was in the kitchen area listening to it on TV for a couple of minutes.
Thank you,
I was
Council.
out.
Good evening, Council. Steve Michelini, representing the petitioner. First, I'd like to point out that we spent a lot of time with the staff and modifying the site plan so that we would have a consistent finding from both the city staff and the Planning Commission staff. You could, with the R35 land use designation, you could build 10 units by right. We're proposing to build 8 units. We are meeting all of the parking requirements, and one of the unique characteristics of this particular site is that we're exceeding the green space requirement. Normally, we have to come in and ask for a waiver of that in order to meet parking or for the building footprint. In this case, we're meeting the requirements for parking. The departments, all of the departments have found this to be consistent, and as I said, the Planning Commission has also found it to be consistent. The property and the various codes that govern this involve the design and what's allowable by design and what's the purpose. And the purpose is to provide zoning districts that recognize unique conditions, that allows flexibility and to promote plans, diversification, and integration of uses and structures. The ground level entrances on the first 2 units face Columbus Drive. We've added sidewalks for all the other units so that they have direct access that's unencumbered all the way out to Columbus Drive. The codes require you to have flexibility of land use that reduces transportation needs, and we've done that by incorporating these units into the transit corridor, which is Columbus Drive. The open and green space requirements, as I said, have been met. Promote the encourage development where appropriate in location and character and compatibility with the surrounding areas. Again, we were found to be compatible with that. The surrounding on all sides of residential multifamily and in close proximity to commercial designations east and west of the property. We're also promoting more desirable living and working environments, which is badly needed according to our surveys. This area is in dire straits regarding housing and the housing needs. Promote the architectural features and elements. We've spent time, as I said, with staff and with the architects to design something that was compatible and attractive. The waivers that we're requesting involve 6 of the 8 units, but we have mitigated that by providing the side access sidewalks out to the main street. It is unique because of the proximity of that to other affected areas, and we're trying to meet that code as best we can. The site is located mid-block, and one of the provisions that's encouraged is to utilize an alley. If it weren't on a mid-block, we probably could improve the alley for better access from the rear. However, there are other properties between us and the corners which prevent us from doing that. This does not substantially interfere and injure the rights of others or other properties. The waiver is in harmony and serves the general purpose intent of the chapter, as is being found to be consistent by both the city staff and the planning commission staff. Allowing the waiver will result in substantial justice being done as we're trying to meet an increasing demand for housing, and these are consistent in design, character, size, and scale with the surrounding property owners, as well as the area that it's located in. As I said, it was a major transit corridor. We are found to be consistent by 20, last count was 26 land use and development standards. I don't want to read all of them, but they're in your report. And based on the acreage and size, we could, as I said, build 10 units. We're proposing 8. And I'll just go through a couple of these goals and objectives and policies. City design standards, we meet 4 of those. City goals and objectives and policies, we meet 2 of those. Public realm, we meet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those. Overall residential development and redevelopment, we meet 5 of those. Multifamily residential land use development codes and goals and objectives, we meet 3 of those. Low density medium development, we meet 2 of those. Adequate sites to accommodate housing, we meet 5 of those. Infrastructure goals and objectives by utilizing existing infrastructure, we meet 3 of those. And in conclusion, as I said, we've been found to be consistent by both the Planning Commission and the city staff. We found to be that this meets locational criteria with respect to the type and size and scale of a development that's being proposed for the area. And I would respectfully request your approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the petitioner? Is there anyone in chambers that would like to speak to agenda item number 6, file number RAZ 22-77?
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Matt Sink. I reside at 410 West Park Avenue. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Tampa Heights Civic Association. Our president is unable to make it. I am the Southwest Quadrant, so this is my quadrant that I represent. The association has met and discussed this project at length, and there's no support for this project. One of the biggest hurdles that we found is that while the applicant may have worked with the staff on design and things like that, there was no outreach to the community. There was no taking up of invitations to present. There was no talking to neighbors and the surrounding, stakeholders in regard to how this might impact the community. Additionally, one of the other things that we find concerning is that we've worked really hard to create walkable, safe streets, especially across from Villa Madonna and the Boys and Girls Club. And essentially, this project is ushering 24 cars in one main entry, going in and out constantly without utilization of the alleyway. So one of the big things that we've been promoting is development that uses the alleyway, so we reduce that impact of safety on the surrounding walkers, children crossing the street. That is a highly, highly used area for children on a regular basis. Additionally, one of the big things that the association is in disagreement is the door orientation, which is in direct conflict of City Code 27-282-9C1, which is basically saying that 6 of these units are going to be facing sideways and not having the front door orientation, which doesn't promote connectivity and communication between neighbors and the surrounding area. We find it to be extremely car-centric. The courtyard in the middle is almost as wide or wider than Columbus. It's 28 feet. So if you can imagine that down the middle of it is basically a road that is a dead end, and there's no utilization of the alley to disperse the traffic. The other thing that we are having a little bit of a rub with is the eroding of the fabric of the community. I mean, there's a bungalow there, and in its place is going to become what essentially looks like a modern box that is going to be out of place for height, size, and scale. As the photo showed, everything around there's single story, all in basically scale with the community, and then in the middle of this neighborhood is going to shoot up a building that doesn't necessarily fit the community. So the Civic Association and the members that we represent are do not support this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in chambers? I see that there is a person online. Mr. Rubaut, have you been sworn in? You have to first unmute yourself.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Yes, I have been sworn in.
You have been? Or you haven't? I'm sorry.
Oh, I held up my hand when they were, I'm sorry, I guess I haven't.
Well, we didn't see you at that time, so we're gonna have to swear you in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, please
Please raise
your
your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Thanks. My name is Callie Rabo, and I live just a couple blocks away. I'm at 2302 North Massachusetts Avenue in Tampa Heights. And yeah, my daughter and we cross Columbus every day to go to school there. So I'm also concerned about all those cars coming out of there. Yeah, also concerned about the 6 units whose front doors are going to be facing side doors and not the street. We really value meeting our neighbors and knowing our neighbors, and having them front doors facing the fences is unneighborly kind of atmosphere. And also, as Matt said, anti-walkable and very car-centric development. I guess it's called green space, but it's really just a big road between the two buildings. It's a permeable surface, but it's going to be removing several trees that could be preserved, including a grand tree. So those are my concerns. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Do we have anyone else online? Anyone else?
No one else is logged on.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in chambers who would like to speak to this? Petitioner, rebuttal?
Good evening, council. Typically, it's the fire department that has a problem with access and sidewalks that are accessing properties. And on your report, it shows that the fire department had no objections to this. And I understand that the homeowner association has some concerns. Their concerns seem to be oriented toward design standards, which are not applicable to this petition. What's applicable is whether or not the development is appropriate for this location and whether or not it's met the standards. And both the Planning Commission and the city staff have indicated to you that they have met the standards for this petition as presented. We did try to meet, and we sent our engineer to meet with the homeowner association this past week. So indicating that we didn't reach out or haven't had discussions with them is inaccurate. They were adamant about their objection. However, that doesn't mean that we didn't meet with them. We did try to mitigate the access and the orientation of the units. That's why we put in the sidewalks. And as you've heard previously, the technical standards, the Planning Commission standards, and the city staff standards are what govern this proposal. We've met that, and we respectfully request your approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions. We have taken into consideration location, and we've taken into consideration that this should be an appropriate location and one that is sensitive to the other standards. Whether or not there's a house or a bungalow that's part of this petition is not relevant. It's not part of this project. We also note that the natural resources have found this to be consistent and will work out whatever issues we have with them at permitting. So I think we've met the burdens as established by the city code and by the comprehensive plan, and will respectfully request your approval. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. What is the pleasure of council?
Move to close.
Thank you. Motion closed by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
Now what is the pleasure of council? Councilman Vieira, are you still there? There you are. We
Yes,
see you.
I'll read it, see where it goes. Unless if somebody else was gonna say something.
Councilwoman Hurtak has approached the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilwoman, go ahead.
No
My
worries.
apologies.
I'm gonna move to deny REZ 22-77 for the property located at 310 West Columbus Drive due to the failure of the applicant to meet its burden of proof to provide competent and substantial evidence that the development as conditioned and shown on the site plan is consistent with the comprehensive plan and city code, and the applicant's failure to meet its burden of proof with respect to the requested waivers. The failure to comply with applicable goals, objectives, and policies in the comprehensive plan, such as while the proposed rezoning may be allowed for consideration under the residential 35 future land use category, the Planning Commission staff the Planning Commission staff concluded that proposed development is consistent with the development pattern anticipated thereunder. I find that the request for a multifamily project surrounded by single-family homes results in a development that is not appropriate on this site nor compatible with the surrounding area, in violation of Land Use Policy 9.3.8, which requires new residential development projects to be minimally disruptive to adjacent areas. It also fails to comply with Land Development Code Section 27-136. The proposed development, as shown on the site plan, does not promote or encourage development that is appropriate in location, character, and compatibility with the surrounding uses. And the failure to comply with Section 27-139-4, subsection 4, such as the requested waivers necessary to support the fact that the proposed the requested waivers necessarily support the fact that the proposed development does not comply with the Land Development Code. The applicant did not provide evidence that the proposed design is unique in order to justify the waiver. And the applicant did not provide evidence that the requested waivers will not substantially interfere with or injure the rights of others whose property would be affected by the waivers.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilwoman Hurtak, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Any other further discussion? Roll call vote.
Viera,
No.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Miranda,
No.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson, Goods,
No.
Citro.
No.
Motion did not pass with Viera, Miranda, Carlson, Goods, Citro voting no.
What is the pleasure of council? Councilman Vieira.
Yes, I'll read it. My problem is, sir, I don't have the other supporting language with me up here. I can read the ordinance if anybody wants to add the other supportive language.
No problem.
Yeah, well, I'm sure a council person here will help you.
Thank you, sir. And my apologies. I read an ordinance rezoning the property at the general vicinity of 310 West Columbus Drive in the city of Tampa, Florida, more particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification RM16, residential multifamily to PD plan development, residential single family attached, providing a effective date.
Councilman Miranda, would you like to add to that?
I'll add about the goals and objectives. Your proposed rezoning is consistent with housing policies 1.3.1, 1.3.3, 1.3.4, which encourages new housing on vacant and underutilized land to ensure that an adequate supply of housing is available to meet the needs of Tampa's residents and future population. The rezoning is also consistent with the Compact City Form Strategy, which encourages infield development within proximity to transit and employment services and directs the greatest share of growth to urban villages. And that's Infrastructure Policy 1.1.17 and 1.1.18. Under Land Development Code 27-136, proposed development is shown on the site plan promotes and encourages development and appropriation in an appropriate location, characters, and compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood. For the waivers, which is section 127-139-4, the design of the proposed development is unique and therefore in need of waivers. The requested waivers will not substantially interfere or injure the rights of others whose property would be affected by the waivers.
We have a motion made by Councilman Vieira, amended or completed by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Goods. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Councilwoman Hurtak.
I'm going to deny this one again. There's already zoning to do what you want to do. You just don't want to do it that way. And that's the problem here, that the public is asking in all of these cases, basically that you just design to fit the neighborhood. And that's not what's happening here, which is why it's going to a PD and why they're requesting waivers. And there's a way to do it within the code. That's why the code exists.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Goods,
Yes.
Viera,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
No.
Miranda,
Yes.
Hurtak,
No.
Carlson, Citro.
Yes.
Motion passed with Maniscalco, Hurtak voting no. Second reading and adoption will be held on February 2nd, 2023 at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you very much,
And
Council.
I'm sorry, Mr. Michelini, I also see, again, there's a revision sheet involved in this one as well, is that correct? I just want to make sure it's accounted for. Mr. Michelini, that's part of the,
Yes.
and that's part of the motion?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next agenda item is agenda
Mr.
item.
Chairman, I just want to ask Ms. Wells or Ms. Dockme answer this question for me before we get to the next item. And I voted the way I did, but you make a good point, Councilwoman, in the end. And I'm wondering, hopefully in the future staff will listen to this. I mean, we have all these requirements that are there, and we have all these PDs. And I'd like to have a conversation later on about that, because I'm not understanding if there's a code and there's a process there, why are we having all these PDs changing the process? And I think that needs to be a conversation, and we need to kind of look at stopping all these PDs, because it's getting out of hand, and it's making the neighborhoods and constituents upset when there is a process and we're going around a process just to do what we want to do versus what the ordinance and the code says. And we need to look at doing it, stopping it. So we can have a sidebar conversation, my office in the future, but we need to stop this. There are too many PDs going on.
Absolutely acknowledged. Thank you, Councilman Goods, and we'll definitely discuss it with you and take a look at that.
Agenda item number 8, file number REZ 22-102.
Thank you again, Council LaShawn, Dock Development Coordination. And this item, Council, is for the property located at 904 East Osborne Avenue. This request is from the applicant, Shane O'Neill. And the request is to rezone the property from SHCG Commercial General to SHRM Residential Multifamily. And I'll turn it over to Jennifer with the Planning Commission, and I'll come back and give my report. Thank you.
Jennifer Malone, Planning Commission staff. This is in the Central Tampa Planning District, Southeast Seminole Heights neighborhood, Seminole Heights Urban Village. It is just off of Nebraska Avenue, and there's transit that runs along Nebraska, the Metro Rapid or Heart Route 400. Giddens Park is the closest public recreational facility. The site is not located within an evacuation zone. So here's the subject site and an aerial. As I said, it's located just off of North Nebraska Avenue. We have East Osborne here. I have a gas station over here, some new townhomes right here along North Nebraska Avenue, infill development along our corridors that are served by transit, so that's always nice for planners to see. So the pink color along North Nebraska Avenue and that kind of goes in towards East Osborne Avenue is the Community Mixed Use 35 category that allows for a mixture of residential and commercial uses. This is residential 20, and then this is residential 10. So as one moves east along East Osborne off of North Nebraska, it's intense, steps down, basically single family detached. So that's the land use pattern. The applicant is requesting to rezone as LaShawn's, sorry.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
It looks like it's pink right now.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Yes,
that,
ma'am.
so that does match what's around it?
Yes, it's also pink to the south and the north. So it's providing.
But it says
Yeah,
here that it's, oh, I'm sorry, that's future land use, apologies.
No problem at all, yes. So it's okay. It's Community Mixed Use 35 allows for the CG zoning and the RM zoning that's being requested. Yes, it allows for that mixture. Now, if it was brown, this does not allow for that CG zoning. Yeah, or orange. So the comprehensive plan does support the residential infill development. So this is converting from commercial to residential. So it definitely meets that provision of the comprehensive plan. And it is near transit. It's located only 150 feet east of a transit emphasis corridor, which is suitable for residential intensification due to its wide range of services and employment opportunities. We did find that this was consistent, and it has an opportunity to bring multifamily residential development to this portion of East Osborne Avenue. As always, I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Any questions? Seeing none, Ms. Dock?
Thank you again, Council LaShawn, Dock Development Coordination. And as mentioned, this rezoning request is to rezone to that residential multifamily zoning. Since it is a Euclidean zoning district, all standards must be met at the time of permitting for the RM zoning district, and that those standards have been provided on page 2 of the staff report. This site is surrounded on all sides by commercial general zoning, the SHCG zoning district, and this is the zoning map. This is the property that's identified here in red. This is Osborne Avenue. And this is Nebraska, that's to the west. So you can see along the corridor, that commercial general zoning, SHCG, which runs along Nebraska. And then you can see the residential multifamily here to the east, just a couple of lots to the east, a little bit to the south, and a pocket to the north, and then the residential single-family predominant further east. And I have pictures of the site. So this is the site. Located there. This is actually on Osborne, and this is if you're looking west. Nebraska is at the light there in the picture. This is west of the site. This is the mini mart. So this is the south end, and then the mini mart is there. This is Nebraska. In this picture, the site is to the right in this photo. This is east of the site. And this is south, and this is also south, and this is looking east on Osborne, but you can see the residential that's located south.
Councilman Hurtak.
So the map you had earlier said that all that was zoned commercial general around,
so-
surrounding the site, but it looks like it's being used currently as residential?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Correct, yes. So on this map, yes, you'll see that Nebraska has all of this is the CG zoning, and it goes even into this pocket of the block, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome, absolutely.
Any other questions for Ms. Stock?
The request has been found consistent from DRC staff, and I'm available for questions.
Got ahead of myself, sorry about that. Thank you,
That's
Ms.
okay.
Stock.
Thank you.
Petitioner.
Good evening, council members. My name is Shane O'Neill. I reside at 804 West Park Avenue. I use the overhead here for the majority of this. But mine's a lot more straightforward than the last couple. As mentioned before, the star here is our subject property. We're looking to go from the SHCG to SHRM. If you looked at some of the photos that they showed of the surrounding area, there's quite a bit of precedent. Last year, we constructed 911 and 913 East Osborne Avenue, which are both attached single family. This, even though this is Euclidean, what we're planning to do on this site is something very similar to what we did on 911 and 913 East Osborne, which would be single family attached. Furthermore, in terms of the density changing and whatnot, here at 4701 Nebraska, we are currently constructing a small mixed-use building with office below, 2 apartments above. So again, a bunch of precedent here for the higher density. As mentioned before briefly, the site borders residential and then butts up to the commercial Nebraska mini mart. Across the street here is a commercial corridor, and Nebraska here. So again, it being Euclidean rezoning, we don't necessarily need to show what we're doing, but this is here what we're looking to do to add to that, to the housing options here on East Osborne. And again, all of the parameters will be met at the time of permitting through building, urban design, and natural resources. They've already kind of glanced this over and given us an unofficial blessing, but we will fine tune the design and get the submittal in if we are granted this request. I think that sums up my presentation.
Thank you. Is there any questions for the petitioner? Seeing none, Ms. Stock?
Yes, Council, LaShawn, Dock Development Coordination. I just would like to remind Council that the request is for that RM zoning, the SHRM. So although the applicant has provided you with plans and has shown elevations, they are not obligated to utilize this. So just to put it on the record.
Thank you very much. Again, is there any questions for the petitioner? Is there anyone in council chambers who would like to speak to agenda item number 8? Do we have anyone online?
Move to close.
Move to close by everyone, move to close by Councilman Mascacco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor? Aye. Okay, can we go to Councilman Miranda?
Mr. Chairman, file number 8, file number RBV-22-102.
2, ordinance being presented for first reading consideration. An ordinance rezoning property in general vicinity of 904 East Osborne Avenue in the city of Tampa, Florida, more particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification SH/CG, Seminole Heights Commercial General, to SH/RM, Seminole Heights Residential Multifamily, providing an effective date.
We have a motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Is there any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Miranda,
Yes?
Ertak,
Yes.
Carlson. Yes. Gomes,
Yes.
Viera,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously. Second reading and adoption will be held on February 2nd, 2023 at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Agenda item number 9, file number REZ 22-104.
Good evening, Council. Annie Barnes, Development Coordination. The next agenda item is REZ 22-104. The request is rezoned from RM16 and R01 to PD for residential single-family attached uses for property located at 2009 and 2015 Saxon Street. I'm going to turn it over to the Planning Commission.
Jennifer Malone with the Planning Commission. This is in the Central Tampa Planning District, Palmetto Beach neighborhood. DeSoto Park is the closest public recreational facility located on Palmetto Beach. There's no transit that serves Palmetto Beach. It is within evacuation zone A and the coastal high hazard area. So here is a aerial. South 20th Street is a little bit of a dividing line. So everything mostly to the east is residential. There are some industrial uses and some commercial uses to the east, but then to the west, we have really heavy industrial uses of South 20th Street. So it's located east of South 20th Street on several parcels located along Saxon Street, right here. But we do have a warehouse use up here, but for the most part, we have single-family detached surrounding the site. Some non-residential uses that do front Saxon Street. So the future land use of this site is really unique. It is transitional use 24. I'll go over that in a minute. But to the west of the site is heavy industrial and light industrial. We have community mixed use 35, which is the pink, and then residential 10, which is the orange color. So the transitional use 24 was established when they were writing the comprehensive plan back in the 80s. They gave this designation to a lot of areas that had developed prior to planning and zoning and were kind of hard to nail down the appropriate land use. So we've seen in the city, some of them have either transitioned mostly towards industrial uses or transitioning mostly towards residential uses. So there's a policy in the plan that we should take into account the zoning pattern when we review these zoning requests in the transitional use 24 future land use category to make our consistency finding. So the Planning Commission staff found that residential was appropriate here because it was already zoned residential and there's a lot of residential zoning surrounding it, and we're seeing that that is the transition with these transitional use 24 categories kind of going that way. So it's a little bit of an interesting land use category, but that is how we approach it. This does support, again, the comprehensive plan supports compatible infill development on vacant and underutilized land, which we feel that this would further. There are front doors provided with a clear connection to the street, so that design principle is met in the comprehensive plan. They're also utilizing the alley, which is the comprehensive plan is very supportive of, and it's providing more housing for Tampa's growing population. So overall, consistent with the plan and that transitional use 24 future land use category. So I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you, Ms. Moore.
Annie Barnes, Development Coordination. Just to summarize again, this request is to rezone from R01 and RM16 for approximately 0.65 acres. The subject property was originally comprised of lots 4 through 9, block 43 of East Tampa, platted in 1925. The subject property is currently undeveloped, and let's see. The site is surrounded with residential, single-family detached dwellings and several commercial uses in the area. You can see the variety of zoning in the area as well. The applicant is proposing proposing 2 buildings, each building with 6 units, the total of 12 single-family attached dwellings. The applicant is providing over the minimum parking. However, the applicant is requesting to remove, or requesting 2 waivers, one to remove 1 non-hazardous grand live oak, and to reduce the aisle width from 24 feet to 22 feet. Ingress and egress is provided from Saxon Street and an alley that runs behind the property. Staff has worked extensively with the applicant, and development review and compliance staff has found it consistent even with the 2 waivers. And I'm just going to place a portion of the site plan on the overhead to show you. For instance, the sidewalks going around trees in some locations. So there was real thought put into the plan. And I'm just going to show you some pictures of the subject site and surrounding area. So shown here is the subject site. Let me see. This is the site facing south, part of the subject site facing South 20th Street. So the site is on the left on this side. This is the site adjacent to western lot facing east from South 20th Street. So, and then this is property north of the subject site. This is property further east, a commercial a restaurant. And then this is one of the buildings directly behind the subject property south, another property. And this is the vacant lot and a portion of the subject property. This is property further north along South 22nd Street, so some of the area is changing and has some single-family attached as well as multifamily development. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Barnes? Applicant.
Thank you, Alex Rios. So this project proposes to rezone the subject property from RM16 to PD residential single-family attached. The project proposes a total of 2 buildings, which contain 6 townhomes for a total of 12 units. We are proposing a PD in lieu of a Euclidean rezoning due to the challenge with trees, limited rear alley access, and our intent of providing an engaging street front by providing parking towards the back of the property. We are requesting 2 waivers for a reduced aisle width from 24 to 22, as well as requesting removal of one grand tree. In light of these waivers, we have worked closely with staff to put forth a design that provides ample parking as well as preserve many existing trees. With that, we are pleased with staff's findings that the project is consistent across all departments and with the City of Tampa land development regulations. With that, I'll conclude. Thank you.
Any questions for the petitioner? Councilwoman Hurtak.
I just want to say that I loved the design of this.
Oh, thank you. Great.
Because of the way you really utilized the alley and the parking in the back, the thought to the trees with the sidewalks that went around. My only question was why you have a drive aisle from the street instead of simply using the alley. I was just curious.
Yeah, we weren't able to use the alley all the way through. There was a grand tree towards the end. There may have been other concerns with that, but that was we weren't able to drive all the way through the alleyway.
Oh, I was just curious, but
Yeah.
thank you.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Is there anyone in chambers that would like to speak to this? Excuse me, agenda item number 9. Seeing none. Do we have anybody online? Motion to close by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Councilman Goods.
Mr. Chairman, file number REZ-22-104. Ordinance being presented for first reading consideration. In ordinance rezoning property, General City of 2009 and 2015 Saxon Street in the city of Tampa, Florida, and more particularly described in section 1 for zoning district classification, RM16 residential multifamily, and RO1 residential office to PD plan development, residential single family attached, providing effective date. Also adopt the findings and reasons of the planning commission and city staff reports. Proposed rezoning is consistent with the housing policy 1.3.1 and 1.3.4, which encourages new housing on vacant, unutilized land to ensure that the adequate supply of housing is available to meet the needs of Tampa's residents and future populations.
We have a motion that's made by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
Viera,
Yes.
Maniscalco, Miranda, Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously. Second reading and adoption will be held on February 2nd, 2023 at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, guys.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
I have a quick question before we go on, just because we're kind of already open this discussion about plan development tonight. And just something that applicant said about choosing plan development because there were so many waivers possible. But it sounds like the waivers were pretty things that still could come in front of us and be okayed. And again, I would really love to open that conversation, because if he's trying to save trees and move frontage, I mean, those are the types of things we should be encouraging without bringing it to a PD. So it just alarmed me to hear that he had to go to a PD because of these things. So I know we're working on land use reform, but I felt I really needed to say that. So I really appreciate the work that you all do, and I know all of that, but I just want to say, these are the types of things that this is the kind of stuff we want to encourage people to do under the normal zoning, so.
Absolutely. Thank you, and consider it. Absolutely.
Sean, to get it done.
Okay.
Agenda item number 10, file number REC 22-111.
Thank you again, Council. LaShawn, Dock Development Coordination. And Council, this item is for the property located at 1210 East Columbus Drive. The request is to rezone the property from YC2 Ybor City Residential to YC9 Ybor City Plan Development, and this is to allow for a business professional office on site. And I'll turn it over to Jennifer for her report, and I'll come back and give my report. Thank you.
Jennifer Malone, Planning Commission staff. This is in the Central Tampa Planning District, specifically the VM Ybor neighborhood. It's in the Ybor City local and national districts, as well as the East Tampa Urban Village. Coosacaden Park is the closest public recreational facility. There's a transit stop about 250 feet to the east of the site, served by Heart Route 15, and it is within a level E evacuation zone. So there's it's in the residential 20 future land use category, and they're asking for a non-residential use. So in this case, the site typically has to meet locational criteria. And so I'm just gonna show this policy 5.1.7. The last piece of this policy says reuse projects are exempt from the locational criteria for neighborhood serving and residential office uses, which is what this applicant is requesting. This is something, I think it was built in the early 1900s, so it's considered a reuse project. It's something that the plan supports. There's also a statement here in the plan as well that's in our staff report that anything in the Ybor City Historic District is exempt from the locational criteria. So that's to support the mix of uses that Ybor has and to continue allowing those. So that is why there's a non-residential use before you in a residential land use category. It's because the plan is supporting that in Ybor specifically. So here it is on East Columbus Drive. just east of North 12th Street. There's a fire station actually here at the corner, and this portion of East Columbus Drive is pretty much residential uses. The future land use is residential 20, which is mostly the pattern here, and then to the north is residential 10, which is typically single-family detached. Residential 20 allows limited non-residential uses, like is before you today, and some higher density residential uses. So the plan is very supportive of this type of redevelopment. We also found this is on a transit emphasis corridor, which is again suitable for intensification and allowing those non-residential uses. We found that the rezoning would allow for better utilization of the land, and it's consistent with the intensity anticipated under the residential 20 future land use designation. Also, this rezoning has created a pedestrian-oriented development by providing sidewalks and really keeping with that urban feel of the neighborhood. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Any questions? No? Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you again, Council. LaShawn, Dock Development Coordination. And this rezoning request would allow for a business professional office, and it would contain 1,898 square feet. This is the site plan for the property. Let me zoom in on it a little. So this is the site located, this is Columbus Drive. This is the property boundary, which is dotted, that dotted line on site. And this is the existing structure, which is on site. And then there's an existing accessory structure that's there. And you'll see in the pictures that I'll show momentarily, and I'll talk about this ribbon driveway that exists on the site. But the structure that is on site will remain as mentioned. This does allow for adaptive reuse of this structure on site, and is in keeping with the character that's in the surrounding area. The proposed maximum building height is 35 feet. This site is located within the East Tampa Urban Village, the Central Tampa Planning District, and the Ybor City Local Historic District. The BLC, the Barrio Latino Commission, heard this request, and this was on October 25th, and there was a vote to recommend approval of this request. So on page 3 of the staff report, you'll find the historic preservation's comments, and they are related to that, that motion from the BLC. And so on the site plan, directly as I mentioned, this is the vehicular access to the site. One thing to note is that there is a waiver on this site, and that is to reduce the parking to 0. So if you are going to provide parking on site, at least one of your, I should say code required parking, if you're meeting the code standards, you have to provide one ADA space. So if you're gonna provide 2 parking spaces, at least one has to be an ADA space. On this site, there was not enough room to provide that ADA space and to be able to provide any other parking spaces. So the option was to reduce it to the parking required to 0, and that is to keep the structure the way it is and to keep the site the way it is. So it was supported by the BLC and by staff. And this is an aerial of the site. This is the zoning map. Let me zoom back out a second. And so this is the site. This is Columbus Drive. This is 12th Street. And this is the site that's identified here in red, and you'll see along the corridor for Columbus Drive, the YC2 zoning district. These are elevations of the site, photos of it. The upper right, this is the north elevation, the rear of the building. This is the front of the building. And this is a view of the side. This is the west elevation. And then that is the east elevation, the other side of the structure. And then here are site photos. Let me zoom out a little bit. These are pretty big. So this is the site on Columbus. And you can see the stairs that are leading to the structure, and that is the reason the ADA could not be provided on site, the ADA space. That's another view, and you can see the structure that is next door, the residential. This is a view if you're looking east on Columbus. We'll swing around to the south of the site. and that's looking east. This is west of the site. And then this is further west of the site, that is commercial, that's located at the corner of 12th Street. There are site plan modifications required between first and second reading. DRC staff has found the request consistent, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Dock?
Thank you.
Petitioner.
All right, good evening, I'm Gerald McCants, I'm the owner of the property. And as was stated, I'm not proposing any type of exterior modifications in keeping with the historic fabric of the neighborhood. I'm only requesting YC2 to YC9 site control to allow for professional office use, which will be my professional office running a small architectural firm. I am in agreement with all the city and the Barrio Latino requirements and waivers stating to maintain the existing boundaries and allow for an existing new fence to be located on the western boundary, and also installation of new ribbons that were demolished due to the adjacent construction of the house next door. And the ribbons will be in conforming with the 323 standard requirement for Ybor City ribbons for driveways. Additional parking would be accessible through the on-street parking that was striped during the street beautification project last year, which recently was completed and allowed for parallel parking within the beautification project. Again, here's some existing pictures of the existing conditions to the north, and then to the south elevation, and then also to the east, and then to the west. And then I have one picture of the existing condition right now where the new ribbons will be installed due to the demolition of and construction of the adjacent residential 2.5-story building to the west. So the new ribbons will be installed in the same location that they were prior excavation and construction of the now existing residence. So that concludes my presentation. I would like to request City Council to approve my rezoning. Thank you.
Any questions for the petitioner? Seeing none, is there anyone in chambers that would like to speak to agenda item number 10? Seeing none, do we have anyone online?
Second.
Motion to close by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hurtak.
Before I start, I just want to say I love this house. So
Yeah,
I'm really happy that you're saving it. I got to see it on the VM Ybor home tour a few years ago. So thank you. File number REZ 22-111, ordinance being presented for first reading consideration, and ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 1210 East Columbus Drive in the city of Tampa, Florida, and more particularly described in Section 1 from zoning district classification YC2 Ybor City Historic District to YC9 Ybor City Historic District Business Professional Office, providing an effective date and including that the zoning is in compliance with applicable goals, objectives, and policies in the comprehensive plan, such as the rezoning will not alter the neighborhood's character, consistent with land use policies 1.2.10, 9.3.1, and 15.2.4. And in compliance with Land Development Code Section 27-136, the proposed development promotes and encourages development that is appropriate in location, character, and compatibility with the surrounding neighborhoods.
Would you please include the revision sheet?
Oh, and including the revision sheet. Sorry.
We have a motion made by Councilwoman Hurtak, seconded by Councilman Miranda. Any further discussion?
Trivia.
Trivia.
Does anybody know a very famous house around the corner and what happened there? Do you know?
There's two houses that are famous.
All right,
Oh, Charlie Wall.
that's right.
Yeah?
They're talking to Genie from Ybor City, man. And on the other side, just across the street, across from the fire station, up
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
garage upstairs.
Yes.
There's where Tony La Russa lived,
Really?
in the Hall of Fame.
Charlie Wall's unsolved murder is still a cold case in Tampa from 1955. The
Sure
White
you're gonna get
Shadow.
on it.
Yeah, and the pigeons don't, not pigeons, the parakeets don't talk.
And the two Doberman pictures didn't bark.
Nope.
Nope.
I think I know who did it.
We're going the long way around this. We have a motion made by Councilwoman Hurtak, seconded by Councilmember Miranda. Dare I ask any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Carlson,
Yes.
Goose,
Yes.
Viera,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously. Second reading and adoption will be held on February 2nd, 2023 at 9:30 a.m.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thanks.
Agenda item number 11, file number REZ 22-119.
Annie Barnes, Development Coordination. This case before you is to request to rezone from R60 to R50 for property located at 4107 East Regnis Avenue. I'll turn it over to the Planning Commission.
Jennifer Malone with the Planning Commission. When I was preparing today, I realized that we made a mistake in our report about some street names when we were doing our density analysis, so I have 9 revised copies that I'm going to pass over to Marty. And so just to be clear, it didn't affect our analysis. We were just put some incorrect street names in there, but the analysis remains the same.
Ms. Barnes, we are all human.
I'm sorry?
I said we are all human.
Okay, thank you. This is located in the University Planning District in the Temple Crest neighborhood. There is transit located nearby the subject site. Temple Crest Park is the closest public recreational facility and it is not within an evacuation zone. I will show an aerial. So this is the subject site outlined here. It is east of North 40th Street. And so when we did the density analysis that is mentioned in the staff analysis, where we took a look at the average existing density surrounding the subject site, since it's on the corner, we looked on Regnis from Greenwood all the way to Tangerine, which is off of the aerial, and then along Orangeview Avenue as well, from Bird Street all the way to Seaward, which is a little bit off of the aerial. So we tried to take a pretty wide look at the density, and we found that it can be considered underutilized since this area is planned for 10 dwelling units an acre, and I believe our report says that it's developed at about 55% of its average density. So that's what the residential 10 on the future land use map is representing, that the area is planned for 10 dwelling units an acre, and then we have the community mixed use 35 along North 40th Street, which is where those commercial uses are. Yes, so one street was developed at 57% of the density, another at 55% of the density. So this analysis demonstrates that this area of the city can be considered underdeveloped with respect to the density anticipated along these segments. This request supports LU Policy 2.1.2, which seeks to use land resources more efficiently by encouraging infill development on underutilized sites. And we found that this supports many policies in the comprehensive plan, encouraging new housing on vacant and underutilized land to make sure that we have an adequate supply for Tampa's growing population. And we found that this would seek to maintain the stability of existing areas while expanding opportunities for housing choices in those single-family areas. Again, I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Barnes? Thank you.
And consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes.
Annie Barnes, Development Coordination. You said you had a question?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Alrighty. Again, this is to rezone from RS60 to RS50 for 4107 East Regnis Avenue. The subject site is approximately 13,000 square feet, located on the corner of East Bregness Avenue and North Orangeview Avenue. So the property is 2 platted lots, and I'm going to show you this plat. So let me zoom out a bit. Oh. So this plat was done, or platted and recorded in 1925. At the top is the subject property, lots 26 and 27 of block 26. So I just wanted to show you how it was platted overall in 1925, that you can see some lots were platted at 60 feet wide and others were platted at 50 feet wide. The site, let me show you, because the site is zoned, so part of the site is zoned, I'm sorry. Okay. So on your left, I kind of zoomed in to give you a zoning overview so you could kind of see what it looked like. The salmon color, which this property is zoned, is the RS60, and then to the left is some CG. So you can see, although some of the lots are platted at 50 feet and 60 feet, they are all zoned RS60. So I just wanted to give you an overview of the plat and then the zoning as well. Continuing on, the property, let me show you the property and surrounding zoning. It's harder to see on this map here, but you can see that CG zone portion and then the RS60 zone portion to the east. So property located directly north, south, east, and west of the subject site is zoned RS60 and developed with single-family detached uses. After evaluating the survey that was provided by the applicant, it appears that if rezoned, the subject property could be divided into 2 50-foot wide lots, approximately. The request to rezone the property to RS50 is inconsistent based on the existing development pattern of the overall study area. So I'm going to show you the map of the overall study area. Taking into consideration the width of parcels in the area and the development pattern of existing lots. So the overall study area, 36% were zoned or were developed at 59.99. I'm sorry, 64 were developed with a 60 foot or greater, and 114 or 36 were developed with 59.99 feet or less in width. However, the subject block and the block face of North Orangeview Avenue, so this area here, were developed with majority were developed with 59.99 feet or less. Based upon that, the current zoning shown, as you can see better on this map, this would be considered a spot zoning, even though the lots were platted 50 feet wide, most of them in this area. And I'm going to show you some pictures of the overall. So here's the subject site, and this is the site facing south from East Bregness Avenue. This is subject site facing both sides of East Bregness Avenue facing west. This is property directly east of the site, property northeast of the site, south of the site, and north of the site across East Bregness Avenue. So based upon that, the zoning, it's considered rezoning to RS50 would be considered a spot rezoning. I'm available for any questions. I hope that cleared up everything.
Any questions for Ms. Parks? Seeing none, petitioner. Maybe they like the show. Maybe the price of admission is worth the show.
I don't blame them.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. We appreciate you saving the best request for last tonight. Thank you. It's good planning.
If you say so yourself.
I do say so myself. Let me introduce you to Suad Mansour. Here's Suad Mansour. She's the property owner this evening, and I do have a PowerPoint for you, if I may.
I need to swear.
Oh, have you been sworn? Have you been sworn in?
Not yet.
Oh, I guess Suad has not been sworn in.
Either one of you, please raise your
Sure.
right hands.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a PowerPoint for you, please. This is RZ 22-119. We are rezoning from RS 60 to RS 50 for 0.3 acres, which would allow 2 single-family homes. We're located close to the river, south of 580. Looking a little closer, we're on East Ragnus, or East Ragnus is running east-west of North 40th Street, and East River Hills is to the south. A little closer, you can see the site outlined here by the property appraiser is at the corner of East Ragnus and North Orangeview Avenue. The rezoning issues discussed before you tonight basically come down to 2 issues. One is lot width, 60 feet versus 50, and consistency of the development in the area. You've heard the Planning Commission make an outstanding presentation that we are consistent. Zoning staff had a different opinion. But what's interesting is that the zoning staff has given you a denial, non-denial. So in political terms, if we all remember a few years ago, or many years ago, John Kerry made the famous statement, I voted for it after I voted against it. Same thing. If you read the city staff report, they note that the request for rezoning is inconsistent with the existing development pattern of the overall area, but is consistent with the block and the block face. It's a denial, non-denial, or maybe denial support. And they showed you the comparables, lot sizes, and you can clearly see just by the colors and the dimensions shown here that it is a very mixed area. Some are 50 to 54 feet, some are 55 feet, vary substantially throughout the whole area. Not real consistent. And when you look at the original plat, as Annie showed you, the original plat was 49.99 feet, which is exactly what we're asking for. The Planning Commission, noting it's consistent, came forward with another point, which I think was very important and very insightful, that they note that the request would encourage a development that would be built with the existing lot configuration of the neighborhood, but, referring to policy 2.1.2, seeks to use land resources more efficiently by encouraging infill development, that the area is underutilized. That's a reflection of the size of the lots and the zoning requested, that is consistent, and the reason for it. Goes a step or 2 further in our opinion. All the departments are finding it consistent except for development or for your zoning staff for the reasons why I listed. Another consideration or guidepost for you is that the area and this particular site as future land use category is R10. 3 units would be recognized under the comp plan in terms of density. The result of this rezoning would only be 2. And because the area, or because this is a small request, basically meeting the density in the area, there really is no impact on infrastructure, schools, parks, water, or anything of that nature. Now, we do have some really good support for the request from very closely located neighbors. We have 4 letters from you, which are the 2 property owners to the rear. We were able to get a hold of one towards the front, couldn't get a hold of the other folk, and then across the street. So just about all the way around, we have support documented from the neighbors. And we also did receive, so you can give that to that gentleman over there. He doesn't vote, so you can treat him rudely. The others you got to treat real nice. Got to treat the others real nice. They all get a vote. This is from the Temple Crest Civic Association, and they are also in the request. So Suad actually was able to bring that up and get that today. So in summary, the zoning staff recommendation is a denial, non-denial. Planning Commission supports it completely, notes it's consistent and it's better utilization. We meet the original plat exactly. 9 city departments are consistent. Planning Commission tells you it's in line. Future land use category meets it and exceeds it. And we have very good documentation of supporting owners. The last thing I'll show you is the property has been in very bad shape since Suad has had. She's been trying to get through the, not negative, but trying to get through the bureaucracy so she can take down what's there, build new, make it real nice. So she's not under code citation, but she's been trying to move forward.
Can we get that up on the?
Oh, sorry. Yes, if we could switch to the overhead, please. Again, if we could switch to the overhead, please.
There we go, it's up.
There we go. So Suada's been trying to work through the bureaucracy. She went through a couple administrative exercises, which is why we're here today to get this done. So she's been trying to move the project forward to renovate and improve the site completely. This would be completely removed and renovated. So there's a economic and beautification element to it as well. I'll put this in the record. We'll be happy to answer any questions for you. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the petitioner? Seeing none, is there anyone in council chambers that would like to speak to agenda item number 11, file number REZ 22-119? Is there anyone online?
No one is registered.
Thank you. We have a motion closed by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Councilman Maniscalco.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let me get here. I'd like to make a motion to approve, and therefore I'm reading an ordinance being presented for first reading consideration, ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 4107 East Reñas Avenue in the city of Tampa, Florida, more particularly described in Section 1 from zoning district classification RS60, residential single family to RS50, residential single family, providing an effective date. And let me provide some findings of fact here. Compliance with applicable goals, objectives, and policies in the comprehensive plan is noted in the Planning Commission staff report, such as the density proposed by the development does not exceed the density anticipated under residential 10, future land use and category, and seeks to use land resources more efficiently by encouraging infill development on underutilized sites, as encouraged by Land Use Policy 2.1.2. Also, compliance with Land Development Code in the city staff report regarding compliance with general standards. Proposed development promotes or encourages development that is appropriate in location, character, and compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood. Although 64% of the lots included within the area of analysis are developed with a width of 60 feet or greater, this percentage shifts as you get closer to the parcel in question. For example, the subject block contains 22 zoning lots, of which 16 have been developed with a width of 59.99 feet or less, and the block on North Orangeview Avenue contains 19 zoning lots, of which 15 have been developed with a width of 59.99 feet or less. Also, we have in the record a letter of support from the Temple Crest Association with some words of encouragement. That is my motion of approval.
I believe there was a second from Councilman Goods. Thank you very much. We have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Goods?
Yes.
Vieira?
Yes.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Hurtak?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously. Second reading and adoption will be held on February 2nd, 2023 at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go to information and reports. Councilman Vieira.
None, sir.
Wow. Wow. Well, let's everybody go home.
Whoa,
Motion
man.
closed. Whoa. Whoa. Took the day off.
I'll make up for it. I heard champagne.
Councilman Miranda.
None, sir.
Councilman Good.
Yes, sir, I have two, sir. That the Tampa City Council give accommodation to the Tampa Organization of Black Affairs for our 43rd annual M.O. King Leadership Breakfast presented off-site on January 16th.
We have a motion made by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
All right. That the Tampa City Council give accommodation to the City of Tampa's Black History Committee to present their program booklet in February for the 35th annual celebration.
I have a motion made by Councilman Goods, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hurtak.
Okay, we are at it again, unfortunately. I'm gonna make a motion to have Nelson Construction and city staff come to council on January 19th, 2023 during staff reports to explain the further delay with the repipe work on Caracas Street and the drama with Crest Avenue.
Second, and Councilwoman Hurtak, I was gonna make a motion just like that for the 19th, but I'm glad you did. I know that you and I are getting a lot of complaints from all over. It's been on the news and whatnot, so we'll talk about it, but I'm glad you brought this up. Thank you.
Yes, and I actually did speak with Brad Baird and made sure that this date works, and
Okay,
he said
perfect.
that he is going to do everything in his power to get the president of Nelson here.
Perfect, thank you very much. Second.
We have a motion made by Councilwoman Hurtak, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Councilman Maniscalco.
Bear with me, I have 7 motions.
Oh, no, and
Sorry. Yes, sure, sorry. I was just gonna say, I believe after conferring with Susan Johnson Velez, Jennifer Malone Planning Commission, that the first motion we don't need to make tonight. I don't know if you have I don't know what sheet you have in front of you, if you have the revised sheet or not. So
It is a TACPA 22-23.
to move it to February,
Yes, February 23rd
Okay.
at 5:01 p.m. I do not have to make that motion?
that is correct.
All right.
6.
Yeah, she has a copy
Yeah,
of it.
so, just for noticing purposes, I spoke with her, and we're not gonna make that motion tonight, and I appreciate your patience. We have a number of plan amendments we need to get on your calendar, which is why we have so many motions before you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I have 6 motions, and I will read them slowly so the record is clear. Motion 2. I'm kidding. A motion, a request set by the Planning Commission to set an adoption hearing for TACPA 22-12, TACPA 22-25, TACPA 22-27 on February 23rd, 2023 at 5:01 p.m. and direct the legal department to provide the city clerk with the form of notice for advertising the public hearing.
We have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. All in favor?
Aye. Thank you. Another motion is a request by the Planning Commission setting an adoption hearing for TACPA 22-26 and TACPA 22-29 on March 9th, 2023 at 5:01 p.m. and to direct the legal department to provide the city clerk with the form of notice for advertising the public hearings.
We have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye. Thank you. Another motion, a request by the Planning Commission setting a transmittal hearing for TACPA 22-30 on March 9th, 2023 at 5:01 p.m. and direct the legal department to provide the city clerk with the form of notice for advertising the public hearings.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Halfway through.
A request by the Planning Commission setting up an adoption hearing for TACPA 22-28 on March 23rd, 2023 at 5:01 p.m. and direct the legal department to provide the city clerk with the form of notice for advertising the public hearings.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye. Thank you. A request by the Planning Commission setting a transmittal hearing for TACPA 22-31 on March 23rd, 2023 at 5:01 p.m. and direct the legal department to provide the city clerk with the form of notice for advertising the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye. And the final motion is a request by the Planning Commission setting an adoption hearing for TACPA 22-30 and TACPA 22-31 on May 25th, 2023 at 5:01 p.m. and direct the legal department to provide the city clerk with the form of notice for advertising the public hearings.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Councilman Carlson. Oh, I'm sorry. Is that all?
Happy Friday the 13th tomorrow. Yes. Happy Friday the 13th.
Nothing.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Shelby.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to submit to council for inclusion on next week's agenda, a resolution amending the rules of procedure governing certain things that actually came up tonight, and I realized through that discussion tonight that I'd overlooked that section 27-150 that dealt with misnotices is inconsistent with other sections of the code that deal with misnotice, but I wanted to have that amended in what I was doing in the rules of procedure, and I'm going to ask for a little bit more time to be able to do that, so I'm not going to submit that. But once I make that adjustment, I'll get it right back to council.
No objection.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you are recognized.
Thank you very much. I have nothing. Motion to receive and file?
Wait, what about this?
What about the resiliency?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No big deal. It's
I
just-
forgot all about it. No,
the future of our environment.
I apologize. I sent everyone a memo asking for a resolution to be written up for, to support the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Commission's support on clean energy.
We have a motion,
Let me
the
add-
chairman and a
just
second,
address
Councilman
this.
Miranda, yes, sir.
This is a very serious thing, and I know you hear about it everywhere on TV, but, you know, the temperature in Tampa, alone from last year to this year, rose 2%, 2 degrees. And it can't continue this way. I mean, we're killing ourselves, not only in the United States, but all over the world. Look at California, from drought to floods, all over, the whole world is in a turmoil. I mean, where it hasn't snowed, it snows so much people can't even go to work. And it's just, what's happening is just an atrocity, and we're just killing our own selves.
Think about this, 150 years ago, with the burning of coal and trains, and then the introduction of automobiles and all that being pumped into the air, then the destruction to the environment before the EPA, before regulations, it is unnatural.
And I know you were there.
Huh? I was in another life, but think about that. The
No, I
earth
know,
existed for so
You're right.
long in a natural state, and we've done a lot of destruction, so.
I thank you for that. I'm asking for this to come back next Thursday.
We have a motion from the chairman, Citro, second from Councilmember Miranda.
Mr.
And-
Shelby?
No, actually, Mr. Chairman, I will format that. Monday is obviously a legal
Holiday, yes.
So I will have it to council before the meeting Tuesday then. What I will do is but I will submit it, I will get it to you in advance.
Thank you very
formatted.
much.
So thank you.
We have a motion and a second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor? Aye. Aye. And let's not forget, we remember the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King.
On Monday?
Not just on Monday, but every
Every
day, and his, everything that he did for society, and so much more. So we observe that day and his contributions and his memory. Move to receive and file.
I have a motion to receive and file, made by Councilman Mascacco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor, say aye. Aye. If I hear no objection, we're adjourned.